just a ride. Whoa, oh, it's just a ride.
So here we are.
Here we are.
What is it? Is it still a felony if it's an international crime? Like
Yep.
if I did
Yeah, those are felonies.
in
Yeah.
Canada and then I came here, I fled here.
Yep.
Is it still a crime when I get here?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I kidnapped my brother from Canada.
Oh, how's it going, eh?
How's it going, eh?
And I further shanghaied him onto the Just a Ride podcast. Welcome. This is episode. What the fuck episode is it, Zach?
15.
Script Keeper.
It's a 15.
Is there a thing for 15? We had a fortnight.
We had a
Baker's
fortnight.
dozen.
15 is a standard deviation.
Okay.
We are at the standard deviation.
Oh,
I
look
think.
at that.
Perfect. What's that?
That's 15, I think, for something. I don't know.
Nice. Well, yeah.
Well,
Welcome back.
this is the
What's up,
Barry
guys?
Hoser edition. Welcome, Hoser.
Oh, thanks for the welcome, eh?
Yeah. Shut
Happy
off,
Monday.
would you?
Oh, bugger off, eh?
So there's 4 of us to keep track of this time.
Great.
And 4 of us to
We
talk over each
definitely
other.
It's gonna
won't
go
talk
well.
over each other like we just did just now.
Just now we did that. Doesn't sound like it as much to us.
You know,
'cause we
I'm
don't
pretty
have-
sure sometimes we actually do it intentionally.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
when
it's
we-
usually when we say the super inflammatory shit, that's when we really want to obscure it so that it
I'm
doesn't.
going to say this, so right now, talk.
Look, it's really weird.
Did I hear that? It's like the little porn clips that get thrown into Disney
Subliminal.
movies. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cock. What? Did you guys hear that?
It's sometimes we'll have a conversation where the 2 of us will be talking and the other person will have a conversation, but there's only 3 of us. It's like, what the hell's going on? There's 2 conversations out of 3 people.
Has the keen ability, obviously, to talk to himself.
I do.
He's got several voices in his head
That is what I'm going to
that
be.
have become
go down
characters.
in
Actually,
history. Unfortunately,
they're not only voices in your head; they're voices outside of your head.
They run my life.
Good job.
They did give me bad advice too, always. Well, once again, we gather around and we start the show. It's our custom now to start the show with a police story.
The police stories.
Since we have a police officer here and you got stories.
Everybody sit at the feet of Papa Jeff.
Papa Jeff, which
This
by the
is-
way, Bearbaw is, I think, the leader for me. Bearbaw. It works both as your Mr. Bear Man and as Naked Guy. And that's something you do in your bed that's not necessarily like warranted sometimes. You know, if you're naked in a bed and it's
Do you sleep
a
naked?
trip with the fam. And
Is that a
I
general?
don't. No.
Really?
No, I don't sleep naked. No.
What do you wear?
Close to naked.
You wear the same thing you're wearing right now.
Basically, I mean, a lot of times,
Pretty
honestly.
much been wearing the
He wears
same thing the
combat
last 4
boots
weeks.
and jeans
Yep.
and a sweatshirt and his New York hat.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how I roll. And I sleep in my hat.
What sports ball team is that? Is that Yankee?
This is a Yankee. Shaiden. What's wrong with you? This is the most famous
Go back to
logo in
Canada.
the history
Jesus
of the
Christ.
world.
Was that right though?
Yes, you
See,
were.
I knew.
Okay, yeah.
Get off my back.
But the fact that you were questioning it,
The fact that you
that's
posed
like,
it as
is that a
question more
McDonald's
than an
logo?
answer.
Or is that, what does that mean?
Listen,
What's
of
that?
all the sports balls that ever did ball sports, I look at baseball the least.
Oh, shit.
That sounded
my
like
heart.
somebody who
That sounds like a soccer
has
fan
about
to
as
me.
much background in ball sports as you do.
If it was a team that slapped around a puck on ice, I'd probably recognize
Ew.
the logo. But
I
No,
like
now we're
hockey too. I like hockey. Hockey's great. It's been a lot of years since I watched it. I was one of the guys that thought when they put the little thing around the puck so you could follow it on TV that was good.
It was actually there,
Apparently,
too,
I'm a
huh?
huge cunt for thinking that.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
It's
All
the
of
only
Canada hates
little
me.
tiny black dot on a field of white.
But on my screen, it was maybe I had a shitty screen at the time, and I wanted to be able to see the
Hey,
video games. Know that I,
I
have
gotta
a
be
shitty
honest with
screen.
you,
and they
I
put
kind of thought it was cool too.
it was,
right?
it was a rite of passage.
It's an American
It was
thing,
a-
I think.
It was a rite of passage to learn how to track the puck.
Oh, fucking! Why must there be gatekeepers for everything? I just want to enjoy a thing.
You have to earn it.
I don't want to. I want to just get through
I got
the
a
gate.
stigmatism or something. I don't know. I need
I don't know. You just get brought up with Hockey Night in Canada at your grandparents.
Yeah. And so is Wayne Gretzky.
I grew up in
Is there a
Lawrence
photo
Welk
in your
night
house?
and Hee Haw.
Yeah, he's kind of like the Jesus of Canada.
It should be,
Every
right?
time you go through like an archway of a house, there's always Gretzky right there.
That makes sense to me.
You're like a painting, like the Spanish Jesus,
Canadian
painting.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What is it about sports records if they're so amazing and they'll like never be broken? It's like that person is basically a god. Why?
We
Why
love
do we
Because they're
deify
the best
people.
at their craft, and that's impressive, regardless of what the craft is.
But that level,
We're all hungry for a god, Zach.
I guess so.
People are amazed with serial killers. Their craft was pretty amazing, but I mean, it doesn't mean you should go out and do it.
True. But I'd rather people try and be good hockey players. I don't know what we're talking about at this point.
I think we were doing police stories.
Yeah, please sorry.
Oh,
Yeah. I started
So
off
another-
asking you, and then I went
this will
off
go kind of
not there.
won't make any sense, just like the rest of the show. So,
Just a psychotic ride.
working patrol, get a general call, boyfriend, girlfriend are in an argument. She's screaming that she wants him arrested for child abuse.
Okay.
That's all I know. They live together. They have a kid.
Oh, guilty.
And
Say no more.
She thinks that he abused the child.
He.
So, get into the house, start talking to her. She's fucking hysterical, and she's holding this very small baby. Like, you know, you hear that, you're thinking 3-4-year-old. I don't have any information. This is a fucking infant. So, where's he? Well, he's just in a back bedroom. I got another partner kind of just hanging out with him, not talking, because I'm doing the investigation. So I'm talking to her. She's crying. I finally started getting her calmed down. She's telling me that they've got this baby, and they're, you know, taking care of it together, and the baby was crying, and he just couldn't handle it, and he kicks the baby across the room. I'm like, what?
Don't kick the baby.
Fuck?
Whoa.
Yikes.
So I'm like, well, let me see the baby.
Yeah.
And she hands me this blanket, and it doesn't feel right. And I open the blanket up. It's a fucking doll. It is a doll. This, you know, so here's what the deal was. High school, when they have those babies that they give to kids for a week, and you're supposed to take care of them, and a lot of times they do little couples. Sometimes it's random. These two kids were actually dating, 17. The parents allow them to live together, so maybe a good choice, maybe not. Anyway, so they decided
like
to take care of this child together. Well, apparently it was his turn. Kid wouldn't. I don't know. You have to wait. I never
robot.
had to do it. I don't know how they work.
So she was like seriously method acting. Like she was committed to her role.
No, she was equally as crazy as him.
Okay, wait. So they were still like 17, 18? Like,
yeah, they're
at the
17
time?
years
Okay,
old. They're in
okay.
high school. They're taking care of this baby together. It was his turn at this time. The kid didn't stop crying, so he punted it across the room. Which, there's an element of fucking humor in that, because he's like, fuck this. This is dumb.
She's like, I want him to get it. He should get a C for that at least. Or
But
a
like,
D.
she's like, we're supposed to be taking
Call
this
the police.
real, and she wasn't method acting. She's just like, this is my boyfriend, the guy I live with, and this is how he's going to treat our children. A valid fucking concern from her perspective, right?
For sure.
So
Perhaps.
I was relieved on one hand that it was a doll, and then it was really hard to keep my composure that it was a doll and not lose my shit on her. But so I had to quickly get into
take
it.
it seriously too.
I had to get
Jeff.
into a different perspective. I didn't take it seriously at that point, but I did not treat her like an asshole, at least.
Yeah,
Of
good.
course.
Good for you.
But anyway, so that was the call. She was concerned about how he was going to treat you. Obviously, it's not a fucking crime, and it was a waste of my time, but it was entertaining
That's
as hell.
amazing.
Would have been funny if you showed up and then he just tossed the baby to you. And you're like, oh!
Dropped it down the stairs accidentally.
Here, take
But
this.
Like that, yeah.
He was in the bedroom, was like, I can't
He's
fucking
playing
believe
golf
this is
with it.
happening. So they broke up, by the way. They did. He ended up leaving.
He tells that
Red flags,
story.
I-
He tells that story to this day,
I'm sure
for sure.
Yeah. So
That's amazing.
that is pretty amazing. Weird. All right. So thank you for the police story. That's just one of many. That's just one call.
that's, nobody died, nobody got hurt, nobody went to jail.
That's one call. And there was, how many calls a night do you think you would go on average?
On 18 to 20, probably.
For how many years?
27.
Jeez. That's a lot of folks that you met.
No,
doing crazy
I would
shit.
have to drop that if I had to average, because different times a year. 15 though. 15.
Yikes. All right. Moving on.
That doesn't mean that everything had paper, because sometimes there were calls like that, or
Right. Sometimes they got terrible. Most of them were.
Somebody watered my dead lawn and I'm pissed. Things like that.
Right. You went to a lot of DVs, right? Was one of the major things. Domestic violence.
Well, a lot of things are titled domestic violence, which is generally, people can be in an argument.
Kicking your
Talk
fake
about that
baby
real quick.
across the room.
Yeah.
So here's, yes, domestic violence is bad and it occurs and people hit each other and it's shitty and things get broke and there's mandatory arrest and all that crap. But normally what happens is you have two people that live together, which would constitute a domestic relationship, whether they're married or not, dating or not, doesn't matter. They just have to live together. They're not getting along. They're arguing about something. That argument has escalated to somebody should probably leave, but neither of them want to. So usually somebody calls the government in to come in and say, hi, tell us all your problems and we'll maybe help you. But our only help is going to take someone to jail and probably fuck your life.
You need a dog shot? We're here. We're here now.
Generally, the person that calls is the person that is very wrong in the argument. And they want to be
That's
right.
funny.
And they want to be really right. So right that they call the government to back their story. And usually it's like, Well, you're being an asshole. You're being a child, and you should probably just go to bed and leave this person alone.
Leave him alone.
That does seem to be like a common weird.
So I come in and parent.
Like
is what I did.
No,
Right.
but so what I'm trying to stutter my way towards here is that that's all, folks. It seems to be a common. I don't want to say misconception, but it's like this weird cognitive dissonance that people harbor, where they're like, if I'm the one that calls the cops, then I'm automatically the one who's not in trouble.
That's exactly what
Yeah.
people
Which
think,
is
and they will.
wild.
They'll race to call.
Yeah.
And then,
oxen
and we
free.
always goes, oh, they're both in the same call, so they get duped in. They're both calling. I'm reading their stories, and the other fun part is I can read what people are saying in a call, and from what they're saying, I can deduce that it's totally something different. Like they're saying this, but actually what they mean is this. This is what they're trying. Oh, okay, this is a custody battle issue. That's what's going on. And then I walk out, and so when you guys go to court. How do you know we're going to court? Yeah, just based on what you said. So people lie. Everybody lies.
Yeah. Well,
Now, obviously, you
lie in
planted
patterns.
bugs in their house because you're the government.
Yeah. Way to go, buddy.
I was.
People do fall under this similar patterns, huh?
Yeah, so the domestic violence thing too. So the end result is usually you're like, well, neither one of you committed a crime. It's not illegal to argue. Neither one of you want to be an adult and leave each other alone. So we're gonna leave and
Don't kill each other.
good talk. Good talk.
It's easier in Canada because they just show up with a horse and then they come into the house with a horse, and it's like,
Well, they just run you right over.
yeah. I mean, there's a different respect level when there's a horse involved. We should probably get horses as the okay. So
I'm not gonna lie. If somebody was trying to tell me off from horseback as opposed to in a car, I'd probably take a bit more of a pause and be like, oh, this motherfucker's on a horse.
Right.
He
Exactly.
probably knows a thing or two about a thing or two.
just to get onto the horse, he knows more than I do. For fuck's sake, about the horses at least. All right, thank you for that. Now let's move on to this is one that Shaiden that brought us. It's favorite comedians of all time.
Yeah.
This should tell us a little about each other. I think
It's gonna be hard, but let's try to pick one each.
one. Oh
I know,
damn, dude!
I know. I know you're not supposed to pick your favorite child, but everybody has one.
Crazy.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't want to start then. I got to think about this.
Oh, I'm Ron White. I mean,
Ron White. It's
nice.
a good pick.
as
Yeah.
absolutely famous as he is, he's famous for a goddamn reason because he's the best.
Yeah.
That
Shit.
guy, just the way he segues into stories and the way that he can tell a story, and his jokes really aren't even about the thing. It's about how he got there.
Right.
And it just
Yeah.
like I can tell a story like no other, and I could just sit and listen to him for hours. In fact, a lot of the younger guys would ask how I could talk to people at calls and not get in trouble because they were pretty impressed by that.
Right.
You like tell people the truth and they like say
It's
thank
'cause
you
you're
and want to
funny.
hug you and
It's
stuff.
'cause you're funny.
Because I'm cracking jokes.
Yep.
But I would tell them go watch Ron White videos. Watch how he just segues in how he speaks.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
controls the conversation the whole time. Yes, he's a comedian on stage, but watch him in interviews. He does the same damn thing.
I wonder if he's aware of that. If he's just playing 4D chess with everyone.
I'm not possible.
Yeah, who knows?
Possible. It's just
Or if it's
natural
just his
ability.
personality. Yeah, could just be.
So is that why he's your favorite? Is because he's a storyteller, like
Yes.
a masterful storyteller?
He's your favorite storyteller.
Absolutely.
Fuck
That's
no.
cool. I thought that's like a pretty quintessential part of good comedy.
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, timing, obviously.
Well, there's the punchline guys, and then there's the story. I mean, it's
But yeah, like that's all of my favorite comics are that way too. Like they'll lead you on a merry little chase, and then bring some element of it full circle and be like, see,
There's
you
something
forgot, but
special.
I didn't forget.
There's something special about a Jimmy Carr though, where it's just like I have 700 fucking one-line jokes
well,
that
yeah.
I'm gonna hammer you with. Yeah.
So
there's few like him.
That's an excellent segue into my favorite comedian, because after I just went on that whole rant of praising storytellers, my favorite comedian's Mitch Hedberg.
Ooh.
Oh, well, wow.
Fantastic.
It doesn't surprise me knowing you.
It doesn't.
But your age and still being into that style of
No,
comedy.
that was
Oh, I
perfect. That was
fucking
perfect for your
love
age
Mitch
group, I
Hedberg,
bet.
yeah.
Because he was young and impressionable when he was rocking
was
the
amazing.
Comedy Central.
But I mean, he died when I was young.
yeah, well, fucking
Hell, he died when he was young.
he was very young.
Yeah,
It was a pretty tragic life.
He's great though, and I think that's part of why I've been so enamored with him, is because of the way that he like met his end, and like you could sort of see his deterioration, but he was just tenaciously doing his art form in the face of it, and
Yeah.
There's another comedian that reminds me of him a little bit, just in some of the delivery. of course, I can't remember his goddamn name, but tall, skinny, curly hair, and really, he's got like a 6 head because his hair's so far back, and he's more of a one-liner guy. God damn it!
I can't think of who you're talking about. I'm sure somebody's screaming at their
and his eyes
podcast
just
device.
bulge out of his head, and he's
Talking about Chris D'Elia.
now I can't fucking remember, so I shouldn't even.
What kind of curly hair? Like poofy?
Yeah.
Carrot Top.
Well done. That's what I was thinking too. Should have said red hair. You should have led with red hair.
Yeah,
That's the hair thing.
Well, now I just went off on a tangent to go nowhere. Sorry.
No.
Red hair.
Anyway,
It's just a ride.
I take mine back. Louis C.K. all
Louis
the way,
CK?
baby.
He is a
Jerking
great.
off in doorways. That's what I go out for.
That's what he'll be remembered for. But
I know.
his stand-up
Which is
was
tragic because actually he's
fantastic.
fucking hilarious.
Yeah, his stand-up is amongst the best ever. I think for sure.
But yeah, still Mitch Hedberg. If I had to pick one, I mean, there's a ton. I can't really. I mean, I guess Mitch
He's the
would
most
be,
unique.
If you forced me to pick, Mitch would be. But I mean, fucking. Wow,
Here.
gapping on his name right now. He's he's literally the best. I know Jeff thinks his is the best, but he's
wrong about it.
He's the best.
George Carlin.
No, he's great too.
Bill
though.
Burr is also one
He's good.
of the best. I would rank him right up there too.
Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle.
Chappelle.
I'm so ashamed that I was.
I don't
gapping
think
on
anybody
Dave
would
Chappelle.
argue.
Dave
I don't think
Chappelle.
anyone would argue that he's
He is the best. I think.
literally the
He's
best.
the goat.
I think
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when he's not telling jokes, he's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. I would say he's my top.
He's
two.
the best for his balls, though. I mean, his jokes are amazing, but he's the best for his
He's
balls.
got some big steely ones for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My favorite. Actually, go ahead. You got a favorite comedian?
Oh, no. Go.
All you, buddy.
I don't even know because it's kind of a pantheon of kick-ass because it's my
Red
favorite
Skelton.
food. I really like the classics. Yeah, I go back to way back. I like Doug Stanhope a lot because he's unique, like in the Hedgeberg sense, but he's unique in another way where he's just grating and biting. But he's not my favorite. I do like Bill Burr for kind of a similar to a George Carlin voice of reason. It's funny because it's true kind of guy. You know, a lot of his stuff is that. But Bill Hicks, I think, is my ultimate goat because he was just ahead of his time. His commentary was like Carlin's, but even more. It was less PC even than Carlin's. You know what I mean?
Audacious.
It was only allowed in England and in little clubs in America. That's where Bill Hicks lived forever. But Bill Hicks was my favorite, and he kind of was. I don't know. He's kind of a conspiracy nut bar like I am. He's kind of cut from the same cloth where we're like, I don't really like. He's a contrarian, I guess. And so I smell my own. I'm like, yeah, you smell like you don't get along with folk very well either. I like
So
you.
What you're saying is, at some point, you sniffed Mr. Hicks's butthole.
I would have.
I would have.
I would have been first in
I would
line.
have went. Smells like family.
This cloth smells familiar. All right, so that tells us a little bit about each other. Do you have a favorite comedian you want to?
Yeah, I
Do
guess.
Canadians have comedy? Is there comedy?
What's his name?
We've got there's a few.
Oh, no.
Jim Carrey's
Jim
from
Carrey's
there.
Canadian, yes, but he's not the one I went with.
Brian Adams is hilarious.
Somebody going to get hurt real bad. Russell Peters.
Russell Peters.
I can do it.
He's
Canadian.
fantastic. He is pretty funny.
He
Yeah,
is
he is.
fucking good. Yeah.
But I got to choose an American because Tom
American.
Segura.
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
Tom Segura.
Segura's
is
dark
great.
humor.
Yeah, he's one of the best ever, for sure.
Yes.
I think it would be easier to name comedians I don't like.
No shit. I'm not sure. Well, then it gets all political because most of the people that I don't like end up being just political hacky folk where it's like, really? That's funny. Everybody thinks that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Silly shit.
I think that comedians now are like the I don't want to say the last remaining, but they're really the art form that still has rock stars in
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean?
Big time.
Like music. There's guys that are like, you know, that they would approach what I would call being a rock star in music, like bands that are actively touring and in their prime right now. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
but comedians, man, they're rock stars for the reason that rock stars were rock stars, which is they're actually hitting on issues that people give a shit about and people rally behind them like hard.
Yeah.
You know, and it's because they're talking about some real shit. They're just putting a funny spin on it, but like the best comedy is stuff that's just observational and like, hey, have you ever thought about the way that this is fucked up and you don't even think about it?
Exactly.
You know? Like,
Yeah.
And you just joke about it, but
The
yeah,
thing about toilet paper is it has nothing to do with.
I don't know. I have no joke for that, but whatever.
yeah. So anyway, that's my opinion on comedy. I just love comedy because it's like it seems like it's still mostly sacred. I think it's come under attack
Yeah.
a few times in recent years, but it's still like people still kind of get out, like you can say things within the confines of a comedy show that you couldn't say anywhere else, and it's like beyond reproach, you know, which I think is great.
It's also,
we need venues like that
big time. It's also like a place where you don't need, it's not a band, it's not a organization, it's one guy, one gal, you know, maybe a manager or something. So it's this art form that's very independent too. Like after working with Dan, it's like Dan lived in Hollywood and did all the things you're supposed to do in Hollywood, and it didn't really pan out for Dan, but it was him going off and doing his own thing under his own strength. Like there was no denying that he wasn't, I mean, he was always funny,
right? And
he always killed clubs, he murdered clubs, and there's no taking that away from him. And he was able to do everything with just a manager and an agent, you know, a tiny little team. He's got this empire that he's built. And it's because of the comedy. It's because, well, the time suck kind of, it was, both things helped each other, but it's such an impressive thing to, especially when you're a contrarian, libertarian type minded person where you're like, you know, you're not doing it by yourself, but you are a loner. You don't necessarily like people that much. It's a nice place to go, and it's one of the few art forms where you don't have to collaborate well with others to get through it and stuff.
Well, you also don't get anything to fucking hide behind either.
True.
Like doing stand-up comedy, in my opinion, takes way more balls than getting on stage with an instrument and singing some songs.
Seriously.
You know? Like, like they both take balls, but getting up there with just you, your microphone, and some shit that you hope the whole room finds funny, that is terrifying.
I mean, I talked about this just recently about my dad doing his comedy show that he does once a year, and you know, I mean, he can do it for a half hour, and awesome. They're all jokes he's heard. Sometimes he tells his own stuff, but I've always wanted to do that, and I don't have the balls to do it. Quite frankly, if I'm being honest, I am too scared.
Well, I feel like the negative outcome of like falling on your face as a comedian versus as a musician, the consequences are way worse. Dude, people will eviscerate you if you get up and tell bad jokes. You know what I mean? Like at least when you're a musician, like most of the room will be like, okay,
they can attack your skill of the guitar, but
good job, whatever. But
the room turns on you.
Yeah, but like
there's no drummer to protect you.
You go up to like you hit an open mic and you tell jokes and they're not going over well. People are like, fuck you.
Yeah,
when it comes to your words and your thoughts, it's more of a personal attack.
Yeah, with a band, you have a drummer and a bass player, and that's what they're for, is to protect you from the crowd that wants to kill you.
They're the target for people's derision.
Right. It's like your singer said some shit. You got to come through me, bro. That's why I got this heavy ass bucket bass, baby. It's comedian. You're like, I got my microphone and my dick in my hand, and that's all I got. I don't know. It is bravery too, and it's weird.
That's probably what happened with Louis C.K. It wasn't. He was trying to defend himself. All he had was his dick. It was just it was self-defense, Your Honor.
Flip it around. You're not looking at the right victim here.
I was in fear for my life.
Fuck. Yeah. Getting on stage and singing with a guitar in my hand is not super hard compared to, like, even with public speaking.
Was there ever a time when it was? Like, do you remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, playing in a band is the easiest thing because you're with friends and you've rehearsed together and you kind of just unveil yourself together. If you're that kind of folk. But I remember the first acoustic time I ever played. I probably already told the story here. But yeah, I was shat myself. It was like open mic, I'll go play. I'd been playing acoustic guitar in my band. Pants? Basically. I was in Arizona, so I couldn't really tell. It was so hot. Everything felt like it was just oozing everywhere.
Just carrying a quarter cup of sweat behind your ball sack.
Yeah, I had no idea. It was just, everything's liquid. Fuck me. But no, I was terrified. But like, I do a lot of emceeing where, you know, I for all sorts of crap, I've talked in front of people. And when you don't have to get a laugh, it's not as hard as when it's like, your whole point of being up there is to get a laugh every 20 seconds or less. That's fucking terrifying, because if you're just up there emceeing like, hey, welcome to fucking Best Buy's get together, hey, everybody's having a good time, if you get 3 or 4 laughs during the whole night, you're like, you're the best MC of the night. You know, if you get 3 or 4 laughs in a 5-minute set, it's like, we kind of want to beat you up in the parking lot.
Yeah. So I know we said we're going to pay you, but we're not.
We're going to take money out of your wallet. Yeah. And you had some food here. We're going to shake you up and down until you get it out of your fucking system. We want it back in the toilet or something.
Put it back.
We don't like your shit. I don't know. But yeah, respect to anybody that can try that. But the other thing is, have you ever been to a comedy show where somebody failed hard, where they bit it hard?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And how did you feel for them?
Really fucking bad.
Did you gang up?
I wanted to hide under my own chair for them.
No shit.
It was brutal.
What happened? Was it?
I just remember it was not funny.
Just no landing.
And then people started coming after him, and he couldn't even come back.
I'm funnier than you, motherfucker.
Yeah. He had no quality comebacks or anything that he should have had in his pocket.
It's the toughest. You can't.
It was sad. Yeah.
It's weird because, like, with music, if I'm afraid, like we're playing a big show here in a week or two, I can practice it over and over again, and I know that my body will just do it. And when I get on stage, it will be different, but I know that my muscle memory will be able to kick in. Like, you can't really practice comedy. There's no real way to sit and be like, try doing a stand-up set in your basement to your dog. It's like, oh, that's fucking, it's not easy. You don't get the feedback that you'd think you'd get, And so, yeah, you have to go up and suck ass for at least once, if not many, many times. So that's why those comedians tend to have thick-ass skin, just because they survived the worst fear.
Which,
right?
By the way, Ron White, have you ever seen some of his old stuff?
I've seen some stuff when he was on the Redneck tour, but not before that.
No, this is old. He had long hair and a big old mustache and wore flower shirts and shit.
Really?
He was terrible.
Really?
He was fucking terrible.
Didn't find his voice, I guess?
He just changed his whole persona.
Comedy in the 80s and 90s was weird.
I think he just became himself, honestly. I think he was trying to be someone else on stage.
That's
and then
what it was.
He just decided to be him.
I bet it is. Because all those, like Louis C.K. talked about it, where he just did the same set over and over and over and over and over again. That was the set that got him paid. That's the set that got him on Letterman, all that kind of crap. And then at one point he was just like, I don't want to do that. And he started to do a new set every single year for like the special or for the tour and stuff. And I think that changed comedy, because it went from kind of that, I've been doing this bit for 20 years, you can't tell me what's funny, to it's like, that's your best bit. I'm throwing it out. I'm doing this new bit now, kind of thing. And I don't know. Now we're part of that generation where it's like a new Netflix special every year or even less. Like Dave Chappelle put out 3 or 4 in a year one time, and Bill Burr puts out 1 every year or whatever, and that's expected now. But back in the day, when you watch like Evening at the Improv on A&E or whatever, you could see a comedian every year do the same jokes on A&E kind of thing. I don't know. I don't know what my point is, but
yeah, that is an interesting thing to think about, though, because it seems like because of the availability and the appetite generally for entertainment consumption, it's like the amount that you have to produce.
Oh fuck,
is insane. Which I know you know nothing about.
I have no idea. keep making jokes, monkey. Dance, you jester fuck. I love it. This is the time of my life. So, but yeah, it does feel like now. There's so much entertainment. There's so much out there. And you make promises as an entertainer, so you better deliver, motherfucker.
It's overwhelming, too. Like, I think about it in terms of video games, and I just saw Jeff's eyes glaze over.
I'll be back.
But when I was a young kid, the video games that you and your friends had were, like, most of the same games. They had a few that you didn't have. You had a few that they didn't have, and you'd like swap games for a little while so you could play each other's games. But like, there just wasn't a huge selection of games that you could play.
Right.
And then now it's like, as an evolved elder gamer,
right?
I'm like, I'll sit down at my PC and I'll open up my Steam library, and it's just years upon years of just like,
yeah.
No, so it's no different than the growth of porn.
And yeah, kind of. But I'm not overwhelmed when I go looking for porn. I'm just delighted that there's variety. But when
I just get frustrated when I can't think of new shit.
You're not as specific about what you want. You're like,
or when I type stuff in, they're like, we just called the police. Yeah.
Like, fuck.
Your NSA's guy's like, look, dude, I got to push the button on this one. I'm sorry. You are going over the line.
I've given you a lot of slack here, and I feel like this is just
you're gonna have to ask for that much differently than you just did. I'll give you some cue words.
So how seriously have you ever thought of doing stand-up? Has it ever crossed your mind?
It has crossed my mind. Yeah,
I feel like a lot of. Tell me.
I don't think I don't think I could do it. Like,
don't think so?
Because the problem is I have the capacity to be funny, but it's only in response to things. So if I'm just expected to stand up there and like spontaneously create funniness out of nothingness, I just don't think I have that skill.
You can shit your pants once, and then but that's the joke, and it's not going to last long, and the crowd will clear out.
Right.
Yeah.
So
you thought about it, but not.
I don't know. Like I can tell a story and make it amusing, but it's not like, we'll pay you to tell that story.
But memorizing a joke and a punchline or a story and putting it in order, that's what terrifies me.
Yeah.
It's like, I know I could do the jokes, but I would just forget where I'm going next.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like a set list, probably. You can memorize those things, but I don't know.
Yeah, he's going to be nervous laughing like the entire set because if he tells a joke and he's not sure if it's funny, he's going to laugh first.
That's true.
And get other people to laugh at it because he's laughing.
Then you don't know.
True. We determined that it's a thing I've tried to not do over the years, but I am almost always the first person to laugh at my jokes.
I laugh at mine.
I find it really distasteful.
I don't know. I think everybody
since I've noticed it about me, but it's a nervous defense mechanism because I'm like,
that was funny, right?
Funny,
don't throw me off the island.
Right, guys?
I'm still on the island, right?
I think I'm fucking hilarious. So
Have you thought about it?
Yeah, I have like about a 15-20 minute
Fuck yeah.
skit put together. Basically, if it wasn't for
hasn't
vagina
just
and my
thought
love
about
of it,
it.
I'd be gay. Basically.
Yeah.
I want to see it. It runs in your family.
Yeah.
That-
So go
that
right
gene.
now.
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it. Evening at the Improv. Go.
No.
You ever thought about doing stand-up?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I do not like people. I don't care what their opinion on me is.
But you can give your opinion on them, yeah.
Yeah.
You can throw down. You can right in their face if you'd like.
There's a lot of comedians that
Yeah, I think
Well,
this
it's
is
Tom
built their
Segura.
careers
I love him.
on hate.
Yeah. The abusive comedians, they're a lot of fun. You go to see that show and you're like, I feel really bad about myself, but my cheeks hurt from laughing at it. I like it. I don't know. All right. I've thought about it a lot, and I thought...
You've actually done some, haven't you?
A little bit. But I've written stand-up for people and that kind of thing. But it is less terrifying as I get older and stuff.
my buddy Jared took me to Kill Tony show. You guys know what Kill Tony is? I didn't either. It's Brian Redband. It's one of his deals, but the premise is they have people come up to do like a 3-minute shot at comedy. So like they pack out the club because of just their reputation, but then people will go up and they'll put everybody's name in a hat and they'll draw. If you draw your name, then you come up and you give your best 3 minutes.
Cool.
And they give you like a 1-minute warning, get ready, wrap it up, and then they will roast you right after you're done. The comedians up there will like roast you, and then they'll give you some like solid advice on like, yeah, this part was good, this part was maybe work on this, or all of it fucking sucked. But they've actually like launched a couple of people's careers in comedy by like being like, hey, we thought you were really good, we want to kind of hook you up with some folks.
That's nice. That's so rare.
It was a really cool thing to go to, but it was Jared's intentions for bringing me were nefarious because he was trying to get me to go. Like, I didn't know what it was. He's like, let's go to this comedy show. And I was like, okay, fuck it, let's go, And then we're there and he's like, wait, put your name on this when we were to put in the hat. And he's like, bro, you got to go up there. And I was like, no. I have 3 minutes. You traitor. Act 2, Jared.
That's nice, though. Somebody thought you'd be good at stand-up. That's a nice compliment.
I guess. I didn't take it as a compliment.
Well, with Jared, it wasn't necessarily a compliment. He would just see what he'd get away with sometimes.
Oh, he just wanted to see you squirm.
He'd walk up and be like, are you in or are you out?
What are we doing?
For what?
For what? Just are you in or are you out? And like my 25th birthday weekend, we were at La Push, Washington, and he did are you in or are you out? And I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'm in. What did I agree to? We're going skinny dipping in the ocean. It's 10 o'clock, dude.
Night, yeah. We're going on a night run. That was terrifying.
Your buddy
too.
wanted to get naked with you would be my first concern.
Yeah.
Not so much the time of day it was.
That's how you have fun. That's a good times. Those are good times.
As you all know, I'm all for being naked.
You're bear ball.
I wasn't
Bear
gonna
ball.
necessarily ask.
Yeah, I've seen
everybody
that
else to
image.
do it with
That
me.
terrifies me also. Like, I'm proud of you for it, but how dare you cook bacon like that?
I no shit.
Oh.
Brave motherfucker. Crazy.
Let's see if it can be
crazy.
done. I was facing my fears.
You've done it before.
He cooked bacon and one sausage.
He seemed pretty used to it. I think you've done that before. All right, let's move on. The next thing is one of Shaiden's ideas, and it's the nature of enemies. Does that ring a bell to you?
It does, yeah.
So why are the media and politicians okay to be our enemies?
I feel like enemy is another one of those words, like we've talked about a couple of words that are like used way more lightly than they should be used. Like hate.
Yeah, right.
I think enemies is in that same category because I look at people and they seem to prop up these entertainers or public figures or politicians, which are, I guess, both of those things, but at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But they prop them up like this is the embodiment of my enemy. Like they stand for what I don't stand for, so they are my enemy. And it kind of, I find it a bit cringeworthy because a real enemy, like I've had a couple of interactions with other humans in my life that I would consider them to be my enemy.
Yeah.
And it was nothing so tame as, oh, they think abortion is great and I hate them for that, so they're my enemy. Like, oh shit, you know, like you've clearly never had a real enemy, you know. But I think it's easy for people to assign that label to somebody who's in the public eye because they've taken that step to put themselves and their views out there to some degree, and so they're like, oh, well, that's easy, you know, I can just declare them my enemy, partially because I will most likely never fucking meet them, so I won't ever have to deal with the ramifications of declaring them to be my enemy, you know, which is part of it. So I don't know, I find that whole behavior kind of inane and also a bit cowardly, you know, because it's like it takes balls to declare somebody to be your enemy, in my opinion. Yeah, because it's like there's some shit that goes along with that. Like if you're my enemy, it's going to be more than just static that's between us. You know what I mean? Like if you're my enemy, I will seek to, at the very least, remove you from my life, or at the most try to orchestrate your downfall to some capacity because you're my fucking enemy.
That's what an enemy is. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. You know, so there's conflict involved if somebody's actually your enemy. So like if the conflict is one-sided, do you really have them as an enemy, or are you just being a petulant child that disagrees with somebody?
And is it an enemy or somebody you just don't like? I mean, I think I've had several enemies in my life. A lot of times just on a temporary basis because of the position that I had. Right. But when somebody's trying to kill me, you can goddamn well right. At that time, they're my enemy. Mm-hmm. And when I take them down, I will care for them and make sure they're okay to the best of my ability.
Once they're no longer posing an
Once they're no
threat.
longer a threat. But at that moment, they're an enemy. But it doesn't, you know, and maybe therefore after, since, you know, I'm not going to like you very much. But that's what constitutes more of an enemy to me. I mean, somebody that's literally trying to take your life.
Right.
And destroy you, which I guess can exist in other ways, you know, financially or
I think politics
socially.
are so, because that's kind of the gist of it, right? But politics are so opposed to each other that I think some people see that point of view as the absolute opposite of justice, kind of thing, in their own moral priorities and whatnot.
That kind of goes into people. We seem to be broken into classes and categories, whether we want to be or not.
Yeah.
And if somebody thinks you're in a category for one thing, then they're going to hate you for that.
But that's ideology, because I shouldn't know, if I know something about abortion about you, that shouldn't tell me everything else about you unless you're into ideology. That's the weird thing about all this crap. But that's kind of, it's like Gargamel politics. Like you said, one-sided, where it's like, I hate them. And you don't even know if they hate you. You just don't care. You've just listened to a caricature of this group of people, and basically Gargamel's coming to get your Smurfberries because they're evil, and that's your politics. And it's like, if you think it's evil, yes, the world is filled with evil, weird, corrupt shit, but it's not necessarily a bunch of people in a room smoking cigars. It's circumstances and the nature of life and stuff, and maybe just different moral priorities in this. But instead, people are using, I don't know, tribal think to say, well, that's Gargamel. You know, Republicans are Gargamels, and I don't. Not only should I don't agree with them, but I also don't think that they should talk, or, you know, Democrats and communists or whatever people want to say. I don't know. Is that somewhere along the lines where we're?
Yeah, I think so.
It sucks for discourse.
More to your point, referring to somebody as your enemy implies that there are multiple participants to that arrangement. Like it's referring to a relationship. You know, if you're like, you're my enemy, then that indicates that the person on the other side of it has some role to play in that interaction. You know, so like
you know each other.
You can't have a one-sided relationship with somebody and really declare them to be an enemy, in my opinion. You know, like they have to have directly harmed you in some way, or maybe realize that you exist, or at least some organization that you belong to. They must know that exists and have declared it to be their enemy for you to be their enemy in the first place. Otherwise, they're just very simply somebody that you disagree with or don't like very much, and that's not the same thing,
right?
You know, so and as far as ideology is concerned, I think that's kind of a tricky one to unwrap, because everybody, if you boil it down, everybody has some form of ideology. You know, like I don't think it's possible to live without possessing some ideology, but it's when ideology becomes parlayed into groupthink and toxic tribalism, to where it's like you must adopt this ideology because it is our ideology, and anybody who doesn't fit that mold that we've cast is therefore against us. You know, I think that's when it comes poisonous.
I think that people are openly adopting that type of ideology and behavior, and
it's attractive, isn't it?
Yeah, and wanting to be classed into something, and once they're classed into whatever category that is, they tend to try to live their life to stay within that category for a comfort or maybe a support, or not wanting to get cast out. Because you watch people, even in politics is one of the biggest arenas that we're talking about. You know, you see somebody who maybe was a Democrat that now is like, I'm never voting Democrat again, I'm voting Republican. Well, now all the people in their life cast them out, literally cast them out. Now, you know, which
is like religion. That's why politics are like religion in that ideological sense.
It's one of those. It's like, I may believe in some of the principles of the Bible, but I don't believe in God. Because I believe in principles of the Bible doesn't automatically make me a Christian. Because I don't believe in God, it doesn't make me a sadist.
Right.
You know.
Well, it's a lot of simple thinking about these things.
Somebody's going to try to put me in some sort of category that they expect me to be in by a tiny little bit of information. As soon as I slip out of that category, they're going to have to reclass me, and it may be a class that they don't like, so now they're going to have to not like me so they can still be accepted by their team.
What a weird thing to be obligated to hate somebody.
It's
I know,
strange,
right? Hi, welcome to the club. You need to hate these people. What? Who are they?
That's so bizarre.
Doesn't matter.
That's so bizarre to me.
How many people do you think... Because if you look at the world, it seems like everybody's indoctrinated into some ideology. If you watch the news, it's just two sides fighting. But I don't see that in the normal people in my life. Just about every single person listening to this show right now that's communicated with us do not sound like ideologues at all. So that's like 80-90% of the folk listening.
I agree, but that's because we have actual dynamic interactions with these people. You know what I mean? Like, it's when you it's easy to pretend to hate somebody that you've never actually sat and tried to communicate with.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's what I see a lot of the time when people are saying, I hate this thing, or I'm against this thing, or this is what I stand for. They're just playing pretend, you know? Like, everybody loves to have a posse, and everybody loves to, you know, pretend to play cops and robbers, or pretend to, you know, play war games with their toy guns in the yard, but it's not fun to actually be shot at.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, the real thing is not the same as the games that you're playing, and I feel like people get so caught up in the sauce with, like, oh, I fucking hate those people because they stand for this. No, you don't. You don't hate them.
Is it lazy thinking? You know, are they just being?
And if you do, you're kind of a fuck.
Yeah,
stop being like.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I mean, there are people in this world that I don't like for reasons, but they're not necessarily my enemy. I just don't have them in my life.
Yeah.
Right.
To answer your question, Zach, I feel like it's another issue of lacking emotional maturity. You know, because like that's kind of shit that you're supposed to grow out of, playing those kind of games.
We hope that you do, yeah. But a lot of people aren't.
Yeah, but you should. Just because the majority isn't doesn't mean that the majority shouldn't.
It's your responsibility to fucking figure it out, cunts.
Definitely blind spots in ourselves, everybody, that we should continuously look at and try and be as honest with ourselves as we can about that.
What do you do if you find yourself completely opposed to an ideology and you see a person that's putting out an ideology, let's say in America, because I don't know, I guess it's so different if it's a dictator saying, oh, we're going to take all the land away from the owners and da-da-da, but in America, I mean, what is the right way to disagree with somebody that you
with guns
adamantly disagree with? Fair enough. That is a traditional response for Americans.
This is America.
But I mean, how far do we go with the debate? Like, because I think a lot of people, particularly on the left, are like, what's the point of debate in these ideas, these, you know, terrible ideas? There's no point in the debate.
Well, there's no point in a debate if both parties aren't willing to engage in it openly.
But then once they debate, then what? Then where do you go? You have to tolerate each other. That's the problem. We're not. Nobody's.
Or you can part company. Like, you don't have to. There's a lot of space.
You're right.
You know what I mean? Like, you can, if you disagree and you really don't want to tolerate one another.
DC's pretty small though.
Go other places, I guess. I mean,
they
so
made
get out of the
small.
game.
Right.
Well, leave. You know, or
abandon ship.
Or if you really feel that you aren't willing to get out of there and be away from that with that person that you just can't stand, figure it out. Like you got to find a way to coexist, you know. Like
how do they coexist as a political entity? Where what would be the ideal way for you guys if we have this stupid 2-party system? What would it look like when they disagree? Is there a time in American history where they did it well that you guys can think of off the top of your heads?
They fist fight and we put it on pay-per-view.
Like we talked about before.
This.
Yeah. Political fight. I don't know.
Cage politics. I think.
Should they hold hands? Should they go on retreats on weekends?
Yeah, they have to make out when they're done, no matter what. No, jokes aside, I think that there just has to be a certain like agreed upon code of conduct in those kind of situations, you know, because like I don't think you. Well, yeah, I know, and it's not always going to work. I mean, there's no system you can make that doesn't allow for messiness, you know. Like you have to allow for the mess, you know, and you're trying to find the best balance of, you know, productivity and messiness, but you have to allow for the mess. If you try to erase the mess, then you're just trying to build a utopian model, and that's antithetical.
Our cunty nature, you know? Is the wild card, always. Yeah. We can never account for the wild card. But, oh well. Well, all right.
Will's the wild card, to be fair, in this scenario.
Well,
it's all your fault.
Okay.
He knows. He can tell he accepted it completely.
This is what Canadians are for.
It's not a real country.
So how do they have rational discourse in Canada?
They don't answer the damn question.
That is true. I've not watched a lot of news.
That's true here.
Yeah, your politicians are pretty good at just what was that? I'm going to talk about this thing I want to talk about. But
welcome to the Liberal Party of Canada.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's I think it's a political thing. I think politicians just talk like out their ass all the time.
We should probably explain to Will what our reasonableist party, that like what we're doing with that.
We should. Yeah, we're trying to figure out if there's going. I'm an anarchist and a son of a bitch and probably wrong and crazy.
It's a weird ideology, dude.
It's a very strange ideology to not believe in everybody else's ideology. But the idea is like, okay, if we have to have government, if we have to have force over people to cooperate in a society, what are the things that we can get rid of that are terrible, and what do we build? Like, so we start with nothing and we build on. And like, all right, what are we going to do? Is there a Department of Education? Is it? So we're building a party to try and make it reasonable. You know, we're not ideologues. We want to see what works. We want to introduce as much expertise in science and mix that with wisdom and philosophy to try and come up with a somewhat of a objective moral system for politics.
We also pepper in healthy amount of dick jokes along the way.
There should be lots of dick jokes.
Very important.
That's good.
I think reasonable people laugh at things, and funny things are things like dicks. Dicks are hilarious. Especially shovel-shaped dicks. They are hilarious.
I dig them.
I dig them, indeed.
You got to have the tool for the job, the old shovel dick.
Shovel dick in the house. Well, we could jump right to the reasonablest party if you guys would like to. That's kind of the idea, is to figure out how to do it better than what's being done. But like we can do that. But it's also just some jackasses trying to be like, well, what do normal jackasses want? What do we see in a political party?
What I would like to see from a political party is just like a straightforward, this is the answer. No political jargle bullshit. Just, this is your question. Here's your answer. Let's move on with the day.
Yeah.
That'd be reasonable.
Or how about this? Here's your question. This is the most reasonable answer I can give. I might be wrong.
Yes.
But we're going to give this a try.
Yes.
If we fuck it up, we'll let you know.
Right. Well, it's those experiments in society that are kind of dangerous, where it's like, I'm going to try, like politicians don't have any, there's no repercussions if they try these weird social experiments. They're like, we're going to change America and try this. And it's like, oh, you fucked up all the kids for 2 generations. Whoopsies. Vote for me next year.
That seems like the problem, because like we wouldn't do that in medicine. We don't. That's why we have clinical trials. You know, like you don't just go, well, we're gonna try this and just send it to every fucking hospital.
So you're saying a 1-year probation for all government?
Well, just like you gotta have a
follow-up vote.
I mean, you know,
that actually is not a bad idea.
We should try it in little places.
The spirit of that for sure. But like, you know, so if we want to implement a new policy, I mean, obviously the size of your demographic that is being affected by whatever change you're making makes a difference, but there's a lot of shit that you can test in a vacuum, so to speak. You know, like this is our test market for this policy that we're thinking about implementing. We're going to try it for 6 months, and take a bunch of notes and see how it is, and if anything gets fucked up, we have to take responsibility and fix it as much as we can.
Right.
You know, and then and everybody that's involved is like willingly involved.
But
hard to orchestrate.
Yeah, very much so.
You know,
but when you have government system where it takes these people and puts them in a place where it's like you are immune to the consequences of your ideas. This is your little project that you want to do, and you can just test it. And that's why I feel like a market of ideas is better. That's why government, when they get involved in morality, they can't do good. Yeah. For that reason. But.
Well, and I think we've kind of proposed our ideal system as a large array of smaller systems, you know,
allowing for decentralized.
So I think that problem would kind of solve itself, because it would be, you know, this community is going to try this policy that this community thinks makes sense for this community, you know, and then like other communities might see that and go
modeling communities.
Yeah, you know.
Well, I was talking about that, like, competing ideologies or not ideologies, but maybe moral packages of a place. We were talking about that a little bit, you know. This city in Texas has this, you know, they have guns and it's totally legal, and people that want to be around a place where you have legal guns, they can move there. I mean, it's kind of like that.
Like Chicago.
Right. Sorry. Well, I mean, they were already kind of doing that. I
had to say that.
But as the world gets easier to move, as people are becoming more able to go, well, I guess we can't go country to country, but as it's easier to move, right? It's becoming easier to move. I wonder if people are going to compete. They wouldn't do it naturally. It's not like there would be like a central plan thing. Like the city of New York is going to be, we're going to go pro-gun, and we want all the gun lovers to come to New York. Sorry about the last 100 years. But
I'm
naturally, though.
That we'll see what happens just with some of the law changes in some of the states with abortion.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're seeing it because a lot of people don't want to live around people that they disagree with. It's kind of back to that other point. We're seeing more and more people move away from neighbors that think differently than them. I wonder if it'll get to be the point, and I wonder if it already is. I mean, we have blue states and we have blue cities and we have red states and all that stuff. Yeah. But I wonder what the most important things
we're going to be segregating ourselves
by moral.
By ideology.
Yeah, maybe. But I wonder what the biggest priorities would be to people. You know, I mean, the thing that would make you move.
I wonder that too, because it seems like these big divisive issues can't possibly be the biggest thing that people give a shit about in their individual lives. You know, like whether or not somebody else gets an abortion, whether or not you know, somebody's allowed to have a certain type of gun or not. Like that can't possibly be the thing that matters the most to most people. Think so. You know, like it's just the thing that gets whipped up into the biggest frenzy.
Well, particularly people are indecisive over forced ideologies. I mean, they're being told what to think.
Yeah.
So
well, we're not being presented good information either.
It's hard, man. Like should get your own. It takes a concerted effort to develop your own opinions on shit. You know,
it does.
It's way easier just to let somebody go, you should think this, and this is why, and I said so. And they're like, okay. Like, I'm tired from working 3 fucking jobs to afford my rent, so I guess that's what I think.
There's that, and there's also like what people do in their spare time. I wonder if you're binge watching a show, you're getting whatever information historically or whatever comes from that show. If your life is constant entertainment, which I'd say a lot of people are.
All my world history comes from Lord of the Rings.
Right? Exactly. But I mean, I read a lot more when I was younger because I didn't have on-demand entertainment in my hands all the time, I think. I wonder if people are spending less time engaging in these kind of philosophical arguments and the concepts behind all this stuff because they're not using a big percentage of their time like they would have in the past. I don't know. And I don't know how
school... going to say they aren't using a big percentage of their brain.
No. I'm sure they're using all the brain that they can.
Another part of this, too, is it's really hard for people to say, I don't know. Yeah. Like, what's your opinion on whatever? I don't know. I don't know enough about it to have an opinion. And it's not their fault for feeling bad about saying, I don't know, because the other people will attack them for not knowing.
Right.
Like, this should be important to you because it's important to me. And because it's not important to you, now I don't want you in my life.
Right.
Yeah. Makes no sense.
Well, where is this moral superior? Where did this come from anyway? Where people just seem to know. It's like this Twitter mob knows what morality is.
I don't know. And what's funny is I used to get wrapped up in some of the shit on the Facebooks and stuff. Yeah. Mostly because I was bored and wanted something to do. So I would fucking argue with people, knowing it was going to go nowhere.
You argued with people for a living. It was your skill.
It was
your marketable.
You were practicing more stuff. You're like,
it doesn't translate the same in text nearly as well.
Most things don't.
And I would still run into the same problems. I would ask questions questions and they would not answer the question. They would the same shit. Yeah. But anyway, like, why am I doing this? It was entertainment, and then it got to be a lifestyle. Like, I don't fucking want to do this.
At a certain
anymore.
point, it just becomes people seeking the argument. They don't actually want to seek any new information or insight. They just want to seek the argument, and that's fine. Go argue with somebody, but don't let that become the basis of foundation for all your communication with anybody who's not your best buddy. Like, that's just, you're not doing anybody any favors.
Right.
I think
least of all yourself.
I think my goal was to actually have an opposing conversation that didn't turn into the name calling, the typical attacks.
And the venue you chose was Facebook.
I just wanted to see if, me, my challenges in trying to help people in their life and stuff like that. So I'd like take, the
you went to the
biggest
shit trough.
odds against me, and then I'm like, I'm going to make that work.
I'm going to find the clean piece of thing in the shit trough.
So same deal.
Yeah.
So I talked over you in there. No one's going to know what you said because I was... Sorry.
Somebody's at the door. Zach started barking.
We got to pass the conch around.
What did you say anyway?
I don't even know. It was so long ago.
Literally
super garbage episode. It's actually super... That's usually how I sound.
Sometimes Zach shits out of his ass. Other times it comes out of
my face. Comes out of my pie hole. Fuck yeah. All right. Well, let's move on, you sons of bitches. This is another one.
Wait, one thing I wanted to add before we move on from that. I thought.
Well, that's awkward. Fine.
I know. Sorry. I'm just going to derail everything and talk over you. How it would be really interesting to see, and I'm taking this back a little ways. I apologize, but it'd be really interesting to see the fluidity of borders. If we had like a small like communities sort of governing themselves with like very small bare bones systems to connect them all together, like we've talked about. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, we already see states that are like, like our state in Washington, the east side's like, get the fuck, we want to be Idaho, right? A lot of us, and the west side is the side that runs the state because they have the population
and all the money,
and all the money, which the two tend to go hand in hand.
Have you guys ever looked at the proposal for liberty?
Yeah. Well, no,
I've never actually looked at it.
Is that the one where it's like part of Washington, Idaho, part of Oregon, and
California too? I think. So.
Yeah.
Oh, California's in that too.
I think so.
It'd be interesting. But like, so if there wasn't any federal government to be like, no, you guys get your states, you can't do that. If there was just like communities that could sign a treaty and be like, yep, this is now, you're part of this community, and then like just how the borders would fluidly change. I imagine it would happen probably a lot.
I bet.
I wonder if
all private hands.
We'd go back to little tribal wars and stuff.
Well, that's what
I don't know if we'd do wars, but there would be no way to draw a map.
I feel like people, map makers would be like,
fucking again, it's Tuesday.
We're creating jobs.
Exactly. And frustrated.
The cartography market is booming.
They're literally drawing, erasing it as it's changing. Like,
but I imagine, I mean, just owing to human nature, people would probably be doing like land grabs and shit with their community, because like they're gonna think, oh, my community's the best, my sports team's the best, everybody should like my sports team. Like, I wonder if you'd end up with a similar problem down the road where it's just like, oh, this community ended up with all the power for one reason or another, and so now they're kind of fucking shit up. Like, I wonder if that would happen.
I think so. I mean, humans are weird. Yeah. And so, I think we set up government to kind of give us a way to try and protect ourselves, but it ended up guaranteeing us that people would abuse power. That's like what government guarantees, is that there's some people that are going to do crimes in the name of the law. Whether or not we'd have that, I don't know. I feel like, again, it would be, most people want to live a decent life. I don't think we'd have warlord tribes because we have resources and we have systems in place that bring us the resources without any problems.
And then you remember that Genghis Khan existed.
I know, but there weren't. But the resources at the time, to get resources, it was so much more difficult. To be wealthy at the time, you're taking over one place to get one farm or one city or whatever. Now we have it where we have corporations that have the. They have profits that are the size of small countries and stuff. So, and they have different spots all over the place. So to shut down Genghis Khan I don't know. The way to get resources is so much different now, and we know the standard of life. Like, we wouldn't go back. We wouldn't want to just be like, hey, I want to steal from that guy and steal from that guy. I think we'd want to continue to cooperate with each other.
It would be in the best interest.
Like Walmart
obviously.
wouldn't go out of business if government went away. Walmart would continue to operate the way that they do, and maybe even a little different.
What you're saying is there's the other side. It's in the best interest for all the communities to cooperate with each other to keep the resources available.
100%. The government doesn't make it so that the supply chain works. In fact, they get in the way a lot of times.
It's the
of
human
supply chain
aspect where you get the greedy fucks who are like, I think we're gonna take that state over now too. We want that. We need more land. We got more people than they do, so we're just gonna invade them and take them out. It could happen.
But that's so much.
I'm saying it could happen.
Yeah, it could happen. But I mean, the thing that we're doing is we're justifying having a government which is guaranteed to do bad things. It's guaranteed to filter your morality through an immoral structure, and it's like, is it worth it? Like, again, we're guaranteed shit. We're not guaranteed that if we let people up to their own devices to cooperate, we're not guaranteed that they're going to eat each other, because most of the time people cooperate with each other fucking stellar. I mean, we're masters at it. That's what we do. That's why we have satellites in space, and that's why we have plastics that turn into fucking things we can play with and whatever. So,
you talking about flashlights again?
Back to the flashlights. Back to that
But we also are able to do a lot of those things and continue to do business with countries that we've had wars with. So.
Yeah, but who's creating the wars? It's not private citizens.
It's
government.
We all know that.
Yeah.
Jeff,
So
mostly.
It's me. It's my fault.
I wonder. I mean, you guarantee if we got rid of governments, the size of wars would. And the size of wars have kind of drastically decreased over the last many years because resources are more available to more people. But I mean, the kind of wars that you'd have if it was a free-for-all in the States would be very small. I mean, at the very least, you couldn't mobilize.
Probably smaller than most of the riots we had a couple years ago. So.
Right.
That's reasonable.
So you couldn't mobilize a whole country.
I'm
worth
okay
of
with
shit.
that.
It would be very difficult.
What would small tribalistic wars look like with modern technology?
Very quick. Just fucking precise explode. Here's a blow up and a fucking sniper
it would
shot.
Look like a very quick shooting cops episode.
No thanks. I know that there's an answer, and maybe over the years, if we continue to, bang on this horse, I guess, while it's still alive, we can figure out. I really, really want to discuss the legal system of what a society without government looks like, and.
Yeah, I want to get into that. I want to get into currency.
Yeah.
I want to get into
I want to go back
what
to
the actual transition would look like. You know what I mean? Like, it would have to be, like, would it just be a overnight thing? Would it be a long-term thing? How would it look in either scenario? What happens to all the shit that gets caught in the drift of that? Like, I want to fucking dig
Let's
into
play it
that
out.
shit.
Yeah, exactly. Over time, hopefully we'll be able to do that. And I'll bring you guys some stuff in the future about
I just see everybody
an
dying in all those
anarchic legal
scenarios.
system.
Is that bad?
What's that?
Everybody
just dies.
will.
It always ends with a fucking apocalypse, man. Shit. Can't mess
just
with
wants
nothing.
the apocalypse. That's really what.
There is a little bit of me that does.
There's a little bit of a lot of people.
Yeah.
that like
Samesies.
down deep. Like, do I really want to deal with the inconvenience of it? I mean, most days, no. But like some days, fuck yeah, let's go. Like, let's bring on the nukes. Let's bring on the zombies, baby.
Right.
If I didn't like
Totally.
heat and hot water so much, living out in the woods would be so much easier.
It's a trade-off. There's always trade-offs.
I mean,
I like
central
video
heating and
games
central
too
air.
much.
Yeah, exactly. But if you could have a Steam Deck out in the woods and just charge it off of a fucking sunbeam, you'd be fine, dude. Be fine. All right, let's switch it up. Let's move along. This next thing we're going to talk about is, we've kind of touched on it before, but it's the never stop chasing culture. I guess that's the chasing culture. And I guess we all have something on this. But Jeff, you're the one that brought this one up this time.
yeah, and this all started really because of a meme actually that I ended up sharing. And the meme says, "Beware of destination addiction. The idea that happiness is the next place, the next job, or even with the next partner. Until you give up the idea that happiness is somewhere else, it will never be where you are."
Yeah.
And that really made me, a stupid meme made me think about my life. It's like,
I love
that
memes
is
for that.
what I have done, what I was taught to do, just as a man, is just work, keep working, get to that next step. You got to get through school, which I didn't, and I did everything wrong. Graduate. Well, I got a good enough diploma. Go to college. Well, one semester.
You did
was
your
good. By
your
the way,
stuff right
got some kids going.
Right.
got some babies. Dropping out of school, things like that. I did everything wrong, but
But you followed a path eventually.
probably had
that
to
was
work a
lot
hell
of
of a lot harder. But the point is, I recognized that it was, start a career, get to the end of the career, keep reaching for these goals, which was great. And I really did realize there's a lot of my life probably that I just dedicated to work and doing things where I probably should have stopped and taken a minute to figure out where I was at and maybe enjoyed it a little bit. But it's definitely something that I think everybody should strive for. Keep pushing. I mean, I have tons of goals that I want to reach and a lot of things that I want to do. But it's trying to live in the moment, which I don't know how to do, but I'm certainly trying. But
hobbies sometimes help.
Yeah, having a lot of shit.
Do shit with your hands and stuff. Yeah, got to be in the moment.
Yeah, but yeah, so I
jerking off.
Jerking off is absolutely in the moment.
So I mean,
be
I'm speaking
moment,
for me because I would understand that other people probably feel this way, but when you're moving forward and working on things, you're always, once you get it accomplished, you're always going for that next thing. Just take time to enjoy your accomplishment.
Smell the fucking roses sometimes. Yeah.
And learning how to do that, I don't know, but I heard something about if you live in the past, you're angry. You live in the future, you're scared. But if you can live in the present is when you're at peace. That's what I think everybody's trying to figure out in life.
Perhaps, yeah.
Some people do it better than others, for sure.
Right. There's a lot of facets to that because there's something to be said for being able to fall in love with the journey from here to wherever you're trying to get to, which we kind of have touched on before.
Which has been my addiction, for sure.
Right. And I think that some of that is kind of a learned behavior, but some people are just wired that way. I think some people are just like, no matter how enjoyable parts of the journey are, they're never going to be able to take as much enjoyment in it as feeling like they actually reached a goal. Like people that feel like I got to check shit off of a list. Like I'm not really one of those people. The journey is my thing. So and that's not to say that I'm just happy all the time because I'm like, oh, well, I'm on the journey, so I love it. I'm hardly happy most of the time, but I find a lot of value in the journey, but I think that's only one facet of what you're saying, or at least what I'm hearing from what you're saying, Jeff, because it's also, there's an element of don't get so bogged down in the gutting it out to get to the payoff that you never get to actually experience the payoff, right? Like people that work for an entire career and then retire and then they die a year later and they don't get to do any of the shit that they wanted to do. It's like, oh, maybe you should have done some of the shit you wanted to do while you were still in the in the middle of your life.
Or even like for me, just with my career, I mean, I always joke about, man, 27 years in the world is a lot worse now than it was when I started. I didn't even make a fucking dent, right? Obviously there's some truth to that actually in that feeling. But so in conversations with Polly, talking about a lot of this, she really made me realize that throughout my career, I did get an opportunity to help a lot of people, but I was pushing so hard in my career and working so many hours and just next call, that I never took time then to appreciate that. And I think it would have made my career a little bit more enjoyable instead of just, constantly just feeling like you're the biggest piece of shit on earth and everybody hates you,
You miss out on reflection a little bit when you're just going on what you accomplished, right?
Yeah.
Reflection is an important part of growing up.
Yeah. And it's good and it's bad.
And understanding. Yeah.
Like when you go to a particular call that's bad, you don't really have time to think about it because you're off to the next one when that one's done. And, you've gone to 6 other calls by the end of the night.
Right.
So then it's just paperwork. And you're done with it. You can put it away. Well, that
but not somewhere inside of you. Inside of you somewhere, it's not just paperwork. It's something that you need to deal with. Yeah. It's terrifying or something.
Well, it is tough because there's certain things that you engage in. Your job is probably one of the paramount examples of this, where you have to, for the sake of your own preservation, you have to maintain a certain level of detachment from. Like you're not allowed to, you don't allow yourself to feel anything too deeply while you're on the job, especially because it's like you can't get bogged down in that. Like I can't imagine you could afford to care deeply about everything that you've gotten involved with over the years.
You can't. And I kind of describe that as, I kind of joke about it, saying I can compartmentalize like a serial killer. But I think that's actually true. That's what happens. Yeah. But and what I'm learning now is as I'm out of it and away from it, well, it's all kind of coming together. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's valuable too, but I'm sure it's probably fucking difficult to kind of sift through that shit now that it's a little more quiet.
I think the biggest thing is, okay, I finished that part of my life. Now I'm get to start this whole new life. Just what direction am I going to go? Because now that I'm older, I just feel like my time is running a little bit short.
What advice would you give yourself if you weren't you? If you were looking at your life, you know, as a police officer, and what you're saying, what advice would you give to yourself? To get through this?
Keep busy. That's the thing, is keep busy.
Yeah.
Keep doing things. Do exactly the opposite of what I'm saying, because now I have all this time, and it's good, but you know, now I want to move on and do more things. But this next time, I want to be able to continue to work hard and go in a direction, but enjoy it more.
Yeah. It's interesting, dude, listening to you talk about this. How much do you know about tarot cards?
Nothing.
Weird segue, I know, but bear with me. So there's tarot cards are supposed to be like, especially the major cards, like not the small numbered cards, but the actual, they call it the major arcana. They're supposed to be emblematic of like the archetypal journey through life. And one of my favorite cards, because I just love this symbolism, whether you believe there's anything mystic involved with them or not. It's a science of human observation over a long time. And one of my favorite cards is the Hanged Man. And that seems like exactly where you're fucking at right now. And it says the Hanged Man is this dude who's been strung upside down by one foot, and he's hanging there, but he's at peace. Like, his face seems very calm about the whole thing, which seems antithetical. Like, you'd be like, dude, you're upside down and somebody strung you up. Like, you should be stressed out trying to get out of there doing something. But the whole meaning behind the Hanged Man is you'll find yourself at a period, at, you know, usually multiple times in your life, but sometimes for a big period in your life, where you're being forced to be still, and it's going to be very uncomfortable and it's not going to feel normal, but the value in it is learning to find peace in the stillness before you move on to the next thing. So it's like, if you're constantly rushing, you know, keep doing things because the quiet gets too loud when you sit still, maybe sitting still is the thing that you need to do the most. You know? We're
going to learn all these lessons, and it's going to build up, and we're going to have one day at the end of our lives, like when we're 95 years old, sitting under a tree, where it's like, yeah, if that all came together, fucking, I had a one wise moment, and then you croak, and it's like, well, was that worth it? One moment, you could have jerked off and had as much to show for it. Fuck.
Glad we made it. No, I plan to spend the rest of my life between now and when I die just in that state of constant mild confusion where I just want a beer.
Speaking of shit, not a single drop of shit.
I stole that from a TikTok video, but I thought it was funny.
That's awesome. So, smell the roses is the general thesis of what we were talking about previously.
Yeah.
Fucking take your time to take the time.
I mean, and
even if you're a hustler.
My perspective is, I've already finished. I just finished one life, so to speak. I get to start a whole new life. I get the opportunity to do it different.
And you get to enjoy it more. You're going to enjoy it more.
Way more.
Yeah,
way more.
And that's your perspective.
And so you're being forced to take a deep breath before the plunge, which is going to be good for you, even though it's uncomfortable right now.
So what advice would you give to, say, a 25-year-old that's like, I know if I want to get what I want in life, I have to fucking hustle, and I'm willing to sacrifice, I'm willing to do all the things I need to do. Like, what do you tell them? Like, are you going to get your personal growth if you just hustle, or do you need to take some time to smell the roses?
Well, I think the answer is yes. You know, I think you do have to, you know, him hustling or her hustling is the right thing to do at 25.
But you can still stop and
it is,
get good at being lazy too.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm all good for, you know, people sacrificing, and really it's investing in yourself, you know, but just like anything else, you can do it too much.
Well, okay, check this out. Like, so say somebody has spent 40 years playing on tour, they're a rock star or some shit, and it's like, you look at their life and you're like, that's a fucking, what a life. We all want that life. That guy hustled and he worked hard and stuff. But then 40 years of the same thing over and over again, doing the same kind of music, doing the same songs to similar fans all the time. Is that bad for you? Like, is life better if you do something for 5-10 years and then you try something else for 5-10 years? And I mean, You see what I'm trying to say? Like, is it really a successful life to
I think what you're talking about
do the same thing over and over again, even if it's a high level?
It's a generational thing. I mean, I was taught you find something to do and that's what you do for your life.
Right.
I don't know if you were, and I certainly know you weren't taught that in your generation.
I mean, I was taught the whole, don't be a jack of all trades kind of a mentality, which is really hilarious because if you look at the rest of that quote, that's not even the message of that.
Exactly.
It's kind of the whole quote is in favor of being a jack of all trades, but
to be honest, that's what the libertarian philosophers that kind of came up with libertarianism, that's one of the things they said to the young people was like, learn a little bit about everything. You should know how to weld, you should know how to set a bone, you should know how to talk politics, and you should know how to talk about pop culture. And it's interesting kind of idea.
I mean, again, it's what do you want out of life? I mean, I was taught to work for security, right? Which I agree with and I believe in, but some people aren't even taught that. They just want all the different experiences, and that's not wrong either. No, it depends on what the individual wants.
Wealthy countries can think like that.
What I would recommend to anybody is find something and do it yourself.
Yeah,
take the risk of succeeding or failing on your own.
Yeah,
I think there's value to both sides of the equation. Like there's something to be said for becoming like putting in the work to become truly masterful at something, or at least masterful to the point that people want to sustain your lifestyle just by seeing you do the thing that you do, because they're like, wow, that's wild. There's pros and cons to that, just like there are pros and cons to the other side, but I don't think that it's necessarily a wrong approach. It really just comes down to the person and their journey. I'm not sure that there's a definitive wrong answer, at least not between those two, in that little dichotomy, but I tend to lean towards, and this will shock everyone who's listened to me talk on this podcast before, but I tend to lean towards trying to seek balance between the two. Like you can seek a level of mastery at something that really matters to you, but I don't know that it's wise to do that to the detriment of becoming well-rounded in other arenas. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like you can be a masterful guitar player, maybe not the master, but you can achieve a level of mastery and still know how to change your oil and set a bone.
Mm-hmm.
You don't cheat yourself out of stuff just because you feel like you need to pigeonhole for the sake of your security or your image or whatever the thing.
Especially if you fall into something that you just find yourself good at when you're young, and it's like maybe I don't really like it that much, and you just end up doing it for years and years and years. It's like there's so many different things to do, and the more you get out of a box anyway, the more you learn. So I don't know. I just heard somebody talking about that before, and it's like, well, because I guess the goal of a musician is to make it would be to be on tour for the rest of your life and make records and stuff. And it's like, well, the journey that I want to be on is one of, I don't want to be comfortable in something. I want to get good enough at something so that I can make some money and it feels good and there is some level of mastery. But it's like, I don't know, I want to experience as many things. As I get older, it's like the wisdom in life comes from listening to people that you wouldn't even think of to know existed, kind of thing. People that are completely opposite of you, or people that are off of your radar. So I don't know.
I think making it, heavy air quotes here, in whatever the field is very simply getting to a point where that thing perpetuates your doing of that thing. Like if it's the thing that you're passionate about, you get to a point where it sustains you enough to keep doing it however you want, then you made it.
Yeah.
Everything else after that is gravy. That's where you get to really flourish and do whatever you want to do with it. But like if you can get it to the point where it's like, oh, I can do this thing and I will be able to survive just by doing this thing or things related to this thing. And you fucking made it, as far as I'm concerned.
And that's really where I'm hoping that I'm at now. I mean, I chose to be a public servant, and I'm glad that I did. I enjoyed it, but now
I enjoyed you serving me too.
But now I have the opportunity to do something on my own, or several somethings on my own, and I do have a little bit of security to do that, and that's so I feel fortunate for that.
Yeah, and you fucking earned it.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Hard earned, very hard earned. Well, fuck. Smell the roses, motherfuckers. Why don't we move on to the reasonablest party? We wanted to talk about some of the Discord chats that were going on around our
Back
lives.
to the reasonableness party.
Yeah, I guess we've talked about it once. It's a reasonableness party heavy episode. I'm kind of a fan. We're getting into November soon, so we're gonna have to ramp it up.
Are coming up.
I want to see at least one candidate written in for the reasonableness party. Well, we want to kind of continue with the gun discussion because there was some really respectable. You guys are the ones that got to investigate. I haven't got to investigate. Some good discussions in the Discord.
Yeah,
around.
I didn't really participate in any of it, but because I was just been going like a madman. But some of the stuff that I peeked in on the Discord about people just talking about stuff related to having armed guards in schools or just guns in general, or even talking about the merits or otherwise of not being alone in a room with a woman if you're married or in a relationship. Like there was just a bunch of discourse on the Discord.
Nice. That's fucking perfect.
And it was just, I just wanted to fucking give general kudos to you guys that were out there doing that, because not once did I see somebody get shitty with somebody over it. And that's like stuff that that's like famously get shitty with your friends kind of material, and like I didn't see one person go on there and be like, oh fuck you bro, or oh you're fucking dumb, you obviously don't understand. It's like it was just and I saw some people that had differing opinions, but it was just like you just fucking talked about it, and that was in a group forum. That's fucking
reasonable.
Awesome. It was fucking
Shaiden
awesome.
was like, it was reasonable.
It was very reasonable,
and that seems like the goal here.
It restored just a little bit of faith in humanity, which is awesome, because I think humanity's fucking garbage as a general rule. So,
and I think humanity should have guns and vending machines. So I think it'll sort itself out.
Guns and drugs.
It'll sort itself out
in the same vending machine.
Why not? You get a little pack.
You get a complimentary drug with your gun purchase.
That's right. It's like a pack. It's like one of those little. You get a gun with some crack, or
it's
this
a Kinder
gun.
Surprise.
This gun just has 2 little bottles of booze.
Holy
it's
shit!
like,
I got a Gatling gun and heroin. Fuck yeah! It's gonna be a good Friday.
There's a toy inside. But I'm not even sure where we want to go with the gun stuff. What we were talking about earlier before we were doing the podcast was just in the reasonableness party. How did you go about getting a gun?
Yeah, or what if any regulations would be imposed on the having of said gun?
Right. Because one argument that you'll hear in this country is that any gun law goes against the Second Amendment. Is that reasonable? I don't know. And then, of course, then when you look at it, there's thousands of laws that have not done a lot of things to get rid of some of the stuff that we're trying to get rid of. So where are we at with that kind of thing? Let's take out the laws, but let's just, how do you go and get a gun in the reasonableness party?
My proposal would be, in this state, and I think every state now, but I could be wrong. If you want to hunt, you have to go to a hunter safety course. Before you can get a hunting license. You only
That's
have
to
go
do
once.
something with your gun, though. You can have the gun, but you have to go do something. But I get it, yeah.
Right. But still, I mean, if you buy a gun, you have to assume you might have to use it, right?
Well, on an animal, I don't know. But
I'm just saying in general.
Right. Get a license to shoot people.
Right. Yeah, well, there you go.
Well, yeah.
There you go.
I have a whole...
They're in your house.
I can go off on that. I actually do have a whole thing for that.
I'm curious. I don't. Hopefully my brain's revved up for this kind of conversation. We'll see.
We don't have to
I'm trying to follow. I've smoked a lot of weed today. Reasonableness party's pro-weed.
I think it's a
Very
really
pro-weed.
good idea to treat guns like tools, because that's what they are.
Tools like hammers or tools like a bobcat?
Tools like a bobcat or a crane or something. A tool that you would need training on before you can carry one.
So that's pretty anti-Second Amendment, right?
I suppose.
The Second Amendment's like...
But we're being reasonable, right? And we're just talking about reasonable stuff. Whether anybody agrees with me or not, I don't give a fuck.
Oh,
That's
for
my
sure.
opinion.
I want to hear all of your opinion.
I think that there should be...
Was he trying to bite me? He tried to bite me, didn't he?
I think you did.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that there should be education and proficiency testing that you have to pass before doing that. Before you can carry a gun and or purchase.
What would you need to know to have a gun in your world?
Safety laws are, the big thing.
Don't point end here. Safety goes on here.
Yeah, your basic safety rules. How to carry one, how do you work your gun, how to take it apart, how to clean it, how to put it back together, how to handle all your malfunctions of the gun that you carry.
Well, how long do you think a program like that would take, and then how often would you have to refresh?
You could do that in probably a 40 to 80 hour class, depending on, that would be probably a 2-week class, which I think would be actually pretty reasonable.
That would deter a lot of people from getting guns, probably. Yeah. And then how often would you have to re-up?
It might deter people from guns, but if you really want one, and you'd be willing to go to the class.
Right. Well, hold
on a sec. But there's no more concealed weapon permits. If you have a license to carry a gun, you can carry a gun. You can carry as many guns on. You can carry them concealed. You can carry them non-concealed. I don't give a shit. You've proven that you are a responsible person. You know how to carry the gun. You know how to shoot it.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Well, I would say, the argument from the libertarian side is that the fundamental reason of having guns has nothing to do with hunting or even protecting yourself in the personal sense, that it has to do with usurpacious tyrannies and whatever. And that is a legit thing, I think. It just really is. So I wonder, because if the government is deciding who gets the guns, because that's who would end up deciding, like, whether you passed the test or not.
But they're already deciding what guns you can have, how much ammo you can have, who can have the guns and who can't have the guns already. Let's say.
We're starting from scratch, though, right? So we can decide all of that stuff right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we're starting from scratch, then the Constitution doesn't matter.
Fair. Well, okay, let's start from scratch. Does that principle matter? Should the people, if the idea of government is to give people the most freedom, should the people have the ability to dismantle the government with force if they feel it's necessary?
I think it's a good idea, personally.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
Governments are evil. So it's nice to give people some
more
protection.
To the point, whether government is involved with it or not, I think people should have a right to have weapons, period. You know what I mean? Like, if a weapon exists, then the capacity for someone to use it against you also exists. So it should be your right to choose whether or not you want to equip yourself to be able to deal with that should that eventuality come to pass for whatever reason. If it needs to be overthrowing somebody who's doing dictatorial things, if it needs to be defending, yourself and the people that you love. And there's all kinds of sticky shit and nuance that gets involved with that, and we'd have to hash that shit out. But at the end of the day,
so what about
this? I think if a weapon exists, you should be allowed to have it if you can procure it. And
so what about this? My idea for if you want to actually carry the gun.
Say that again.
If you actually want to carry the gun
in society,
does that do it?
I agree with you. I don't know that fundamental principle.
I just want to educate. I want to see people get incentivized for continuing education on their gun safety.
I'm just trying to think about the logistics of that, because so if you do it at the point of purchase, it's part of me is if you want to go out and buy a gun, you should be allowed to go out and buy a gun. Okay, that's easy to say, but if you want, and I also agree with what you're saying in principle, Jeff, where it's I think that if you're going to be allowed to have this tool and potentially be in a position to use it, you should at least prove a basic working knowledge of being able to use it. We do that for cars.
Yeah, I agree with you too, Jeff. I'm not disagreeing with you.
But how do you do that?
But I do understand.
But if you don't do that at the point when somebody buys a gun, how the fuck do you keep track of that and enforce that?
Well, what if
there are gun laws in this state that they absolutely cannot track?
Right.
Well, I got one thing that we can do right now as just the people, as friends. Like, if you own a gun, you should know how to use it, and you should feel embarrassed that you don't know how to use it. Like, I own a gun and I fucking suck with it, and I should be embarrassed and I should be made fun of by my friends until I go and figure it out, right?
It should be a responsibility.
And we should go shooting.
Be a responsibility of somebody, but so is taking
you're lame, Zach. Learn how to shoot your gun.
I should, right? Well, I'll practice on you, motherfucker. But
see, that's why we don't make fun of people with guns. You've answered your own question.
But I'm actually not gonna. I promise I won't. Maybe you get a little cunty sometimes. I might. And I get pretty
I didn't even bring
hangry.
Ketchup chips from Canada.
You didn't. But I wonder, I don't know, can't we just pressure each other in a societal way? We're just kind of like, we don't, there's a lot of unwritten rules that people in society do because it's like, you don't want to be shamed.
People are lazy, though.
You're right.
People
We're trying to manufacture
being made fun of because they just don't care enough to fix it. They're like, whatever, make fun of me, I don't care.
Look at all the pressures on convicted felons to not carry guns, but it doesn't seem to stop them.
True. Well, they have different goals in mind. It's like, well, it's easier to get that shit I want if I had point this gun at that person.
At the same time, if you want to look at the numbers too, like if you're going statistically proving your proficiency with the firearm, I'm not sure how much that's going to change dick. You know what I mean? Because like that's really like,
I just want the people that have guns that might protect me to be able to hit their target. That's really what I care about.
Yeah, I hear you.
Well, I feel like you're teaching all the bad people how to be better at gun stuff.
Bad
you know
people are probably not going to. Well, I mean, they're bad people. They're going to have to be felons, I guess. But
right,
if they're premeditating murder, they're gonna practice probably.
Most
like,
of our problems
they're gonna already probably know.
Maybe there's not a lot of places to practice in cities, though. I mean, where are you going to go? There's not a lot of gun ranges. There's some, but
yeah, I guess depends on the city. I think
good luck in New York.
Blocks in cities that are gun ranges.
See, we're creating jobs.
Not officially, but yes, technically, absolutely.
Right. So, but I mean, so looking at the numbers, I think I looked at it, and I'm probably going to misquote it, but it was a very, very small percentage of gun deaths every year that is like accident, like mishandling a gun. You know what I mean? So, like, if it's just teaching people how to do that so they don't hurt themselves or other people,
honestly,
that's
I think
like
the most
3%.
Is suicide.
It is by far suicide.
Most is
20,000 or
suicide.
so.
It's I don't think it's by far. I think it's like 46% is murder and 50-something% is suicide, and like 3% is like other accidents.
The number I saw was 20,000 or so, big round number, so that you can always question that. But 20,000 suicides and about 8,000 murders, homicides, and in that homicide number was all sorts of stuff, including police officers protecting, those kind of things. So,
right. Yeah.
So lots of gun deaths, but.
So I guess I'm trying to think, because like on principle, I'm like, yeah, you should know how to operate a gun if you have a gun. But I'm like, what is that really accomplishing at the end of the day? Like just knowing how to work a gun doesn't mean you're going to be a good marksman.
Right. The background checks seem like the most important thing to me, and I think everyone on both sides is happy with that. I think, I mean, totally the NRA invented background checks.
We should probably
so
know if you've murdered people before we sell you a gun. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah. I think your mental health should.
Yeah,
there's red flags in there,
and we should know the context of said murders too. Like,
I think so.
So the thing I was curious about, actually, going with your storyline there, if everybody and you arm the populace with guns and they're all walking out and doing their day-to-day lives. Now everyone's at the mall, let's say. Mm-hmm. Felons already find their way to guns, whether they follow the system or not. So, buddy's got a gun, shoots someone. Nobody knows where the gunshot came from, and everyone has guns. What stops mass hysteria and everyone starting to shoot everyone?
Oh my God, that'd be the best Quentin Tarantino ever.
I'd watch it.
Well, there's no answer to that. I don't know. It'd be awesome to watch. Now I want it to happen. Great. Now I want to be there for that.
That would be really interesting, because if everybody's knee-jerk response to hearing a gunshot is to pull out
a gun and start shooting and not know what they're shooting at, then they didn't learn shit in the class.
But that never does that ever
not
happen?
To start shooting, but if everybody's holding a gun, it makes identifying the shooter quite a bit more fucking difficult.
Oh
right?
man,
it does.
Oh man, yeah.
That's a valid scenario. I mean, I think just because everybody's allowed to carry a gun doesn't mean everybody will.
Like North American Squid Games.
For sure. I know a lot of people that will never touch a gun.
Game. Yeah. Yeah, fucking Squid Game was great. So I know that gun laws in Canada are closer to what you're talking about, aren't they, Jeff? I'm asking Will, but what Jeff was talking about.
Yeah, the gun licensing, you have to get a PAL, which is your possession acquisition license, in order to own a gun.
A PAL?
A PAL.
You got to get a PAL.
Get my PAL.
Your PAL is your gun.
Makes sense.
If you want to have like a handgun or something, then it's a restricted license that goes on top of that. It's another day, so it's 3 days in total if you want a PAL and a restricted, plus physical written test for both. And then you have to have a hunting license as well to go hunting for an animal. If you have only a hunting license, good for you. You still can't take a gun out in the bush unless you're with someone who has a registered PAL, and then you borrow their gun.
I don't like that.
No.
That sucks.
What's the cost of all that? Is it expensive?
I think the hunting course, when I did the hunting, that was quite a few years ago, it was like $50 or something. Yeah. So that was pretty affordable. The PAL, I believe, was like a $120, and then you'd pay an additional $50 or something to get the restricted with it.
So is that a once a lifetime, or you had to do that?
Hunting
every year.
Hunting is done.
Okay.
Now I can just buy my book and get my tags for whatever I'm doing.
Okay.
The PAL is good for, I think it's a 5 or 8 year cycle. And if you want to renew, fill out your paperwork, send it to the RCMP so they know you're going to keep your guns.
Okay, so it's no retesting or anything like that?
Not unless you're like the 80-year-old person, and just like you have to do for your driving license, Please go renew.
You're too old. I think you're too old to own a gun.
Does Justin Trudeau come to your house and look at all the guns and like, oh, that's nice?
Yeah.
No, because if he did, he'd already be gone.
And he throws a little bit of gravel at you if he doesn't like what you say. Just because somebody did it to him one time.
Well, we're going to come back to him. But before we get to,
I was ready.
Will was like, I'm ready to go.
well, we can do it right now. Fuck this thing. Justin Trudeau.
Fuck Trudeau.
We brought
One of the largest
Will,
hashtags in Canada.
we brought Will down from Canada just to say that.
Fuck Trudeau. Trudeau must go.
Trudeau must go. He's got all sorts of nice rhymes that goes with his name. You can make all sorts of great songs and chants.
Just
Trudeau must go.
Just
Trudeau's a
inflation.
hoe.
You follow him on Twitter, though, don't you?
I don't even have a Twitter.
Yeah.
Nice. Good answer.
Will's more anti-social media than I am, which is saying something.
Well, we don't get a lot of information about Trudeau in this country in our mainstream news. And when we do get it, it's usually like, oh, and he did wonderful things about this side project thing that doesn't matter to the people. Like, but
He's really good about spending our money.
The politicians are excellent at just throwing down the checks.
And like you guys just had Ian down in Florida. We had Fiona up over on our East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Russia-Ukraine war. Oh, I'll give them billions and billions of dollars. Problem in our country, here's 300 million.
Right.
Like you don't even get 33% of $1 billion to help your own people. First thing you're told on a plane when you're flying is put the mask on your face before you help the person beside you. You can't help yourself. What the fuck?
Right? Priorities are a little messed up, I would say, for sure.
Well, that is really interesting, because people, from what I understand, there's a lot of people that are praising him for that chunk of cash that he put into Canada.
Yeah, those people don't understand economy.
Right.
A lot of people don't. Well, Steel Man, Mr. Trudeau, what do you like about him? Give us some things that you like about him.
This is an unholy tradition we have on Just Right.
Things that I like about.
We got a Steel Man.
We have to try and see things.
We don't want him to be a Gargamel.
Pretty, I'm not so pretty.
No, I'm way more gorgeous than that man is. That's the best part.
There's got to be something good that you like him. Besides,
He can do a plank. I'll give him that. He knows how to plank.
High praise.
Yeah.
He's a really adequate target for hatred.
He is. You're right. You're
excellent at deflection.
Right. Okay, these are positive.
I mean, I
traits,
don't mean
I
it
guess.
like it's good as in like he's good at it, but he knows how to deflect. Right. Just really badly.
Okay. All right. I think we've steel manned a very weak steel. So do you agree with any of
foil?
So what is it? What's the number one thing that's making maybe you, but just in general, people? Why don't people like Justin Trudeau in Canada?
Dictator.
Okay. What number one thing that makes him feel like a dictator to you?
To me personally,
Or just what's the argument?
the argument is the government has used forceful mandates on our country to. Well, actually, the whole pandemic. It's a pandemic, so we're just enacting this response so we can have extra rights and this and that. Mm-hmm. When that wasn't enough, he made a backroom door deal with... So in Canada, we don't just have two parties. There's Conservative, Republican, Liberal, Democrat. Then we have NDP, which is kind of liberal, but not. There's a Green Party. There's the Bloc Québécois, which only wants to get out of Canada. So nobody votes there except for Quebec.
Right. It's all Quebec.
And now there's also the CPC, which is the... CPC, is that right?
Canadian Peoples, is that the one?
No, PCP, I don't know. The People's Party of Canada.
PPC.
Okay.
That's
There you
the
go,
one.
PPC.
So you have 6-7
PP.
choices to choose from, it sounds like.
Yeah, so your voting is always broken up, and like a majority is only ever around 30% of the vote.
Yep. And that's what Trudeau has, is about 30%.
He's
right?
sitting at about 26 or 28% right now, whereas our Conservative Party is currently in the polls at 34 point something.
So they're going to swing. When
Right
the
now,
elections
yes.
come around, it should...
What Trudeau did, though, to get more power was make a backroom door with the NDP, and now they're technically a majority because the NDP is willing to support the Liberals' choices if the Liberals do these few things for the NDP, which all cost a lot of money and help out a very select few people of the country.
So corrupt as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And I've been to Canada a few times, and I've listened to it sounds like there's always some like money laundering going on in the government, and there's always these kind of things. But this is another level. This is a different level.
Yeah, there's still money laundering. Don't worry about that.
Oh, yeah. No, who cares about all that shit?
We got that.
Yeah. The last time I was up there, that was like all over the news. But now it's, I mean, as an outsider looking, I always pay attention to Canada the best I can. And it did seem like with with the gasoline, the trucks when they were doing the protests and stuff, and that became a big old deal.
Yep.
And when they started to, fine and imprison people for bringing gas cans to these truck drivers, it's like, what the fuck are we doing? That's such a weird level of fucking hating your own people that it was hard to. I could see why you guys wouldn't like them. I mean,
it was
here in the United
easy.
States, our politicians, they pretend that they like us, even though we all know that they hate us.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem like you were even pretending. They're like, yeah, we don't like you. You're all pieces of shit. We're going to arrest you for helping your this perspective of thought.
We're racist, masochist. Oh, what's his other favorite words?
Those are two big ones.
Yeah, they are, but we all are.
I'm sure.
Misogynist,
Yeah,
that's
very
another one
much
he
so.
loves.
You probably don't like Islam and probably don't like LGBTQ.
Well, more than likely, you're just that traditional right wing.
You basically hate everything because you disagree with a specific policy.
If you agree with them, you're absolutely amazing. You are the perfect citizen. Disagree? Go to hell.
No, so it's just the same up there.
Well, it's not like, I mean, when you talk about, we kind of glossed over, like when you talk about like, oh, we created these mandates during the pandemic. I think a lot of people in the States go like, oh, well, yeah, fuck off. Like we had that too. Like you had to wear masks and like, they were telling you need to go get vaccinated. It's like, no, it was way, way, way over that line in Canada.
People lost jobs. The doctors and nurses, 50% of them, or 30 to 50, somewhere in that neighborhood, lost their job because they were unwilling to get the vaccine because it was their personal choice.
Right.
And so they said, no, it's not your choice. You have to do this for your job.
That's higher than here.
Oh, yeah. A bunch of them lost. Can't leave the country. If you're unvaccinated, a couple months ago, they all dropped on the 1st of this month. You cannot ride a plane domestically. You cannot ride a train domestically. You cannot be in a public environment kind of deal with people. The arenas and things, like you want to go to a hockey game? No, unless you're vaccinated. If you're not, suck it up, buttercup.
So because we had this pandemic, they're like, well, Papers, Please sounds reasonable now. And it's like, hey, can you hear yourself?
Don't. And it's like, it's nothing to do with like, if you decide you want to go and get vaccinated for something, fucking have at it. Like, that's,
absolutely.
If that's what you feel like is right for you, full support. Like, fucking go do it, but like,
do what you believe is right for you, but don't make it another person's problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Agreed. And on both sides too. Like, I don't think anybody should be like shaming somebody for feeling like they needed to go get vaccinated. It's like,
absolutely
fine,
not.
Go for it. But like, it's this whole like, we have to be in your business to the point where we will govern how you move about freely. Like that is dictatorship, like, and to the point where even if you were vaccinated, but then you get COVID, you're forced to quarantine for so long that you might lose your job because you just can't be at fucking work. You know? Like, it's insane.
There was at one point you weren't allowed to leave the province. So you were stuck to your own province, our version of a state. If I recall correctly, at some point they were even telling you, like, don't leave your city. There was Christmas. Christmas is over. You should not go gather, stay away from your family.
Christmas is canceled.
Yeah. There's 4 people in your residence. You got 4 people over for Christmas. Good job. You live alone, have a lonely Christmas.
Right. But
Like-
this was the most invasive I've seen in our lives, for sure, from the government. They were just like, well, we can take this power, and we did. And people doubled down. California had some pretty extra shit that was crazy. A few states went pretty hard on it.
Well,
New York was pretty hardcore.
We weren't
Canada was
Australia.
like- Canada was.
Yeah, thank
Canada-
goodness you weren't Australia.
Canada was like. Didn't I see like they were like, if you were supposed to quarantine and you didn't, they would like, they could come and get you.
Yeah, it's a fun story with that one. My brother, he's like head safety for a bunch of diamond and coal mines. He used to serve Army, did search and rescue. Now he's doing this because I don't know what's wrong with him. He was in South Africa when Omicron first came up in South Africa. And he was supposed to fly home for Christmas.
So he was patient zero.
More or less.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the entire world was like, nah, we don't want flights from South Africa.
Right.
No. Did like 6 or 8 connecting flights to finally get back home. Okay, you got to quarantine for 2 weeks. All right. He's got a Great Pyrenees.
Big old dog.
Name's Huxley. He's 180 pounds. Great big. He's so sweet, though. Great big head on him. Technically, it's his lady's dog, but this lives in the backyard. Somebody showed up to his house and decided to go around back and into the yard to confirm that he was quarantining at his house. who in their right mind just breaks into someone's backyard to see? I mean, other than a burglar or something.
People that have a very high moral standing.
Went the way I hope it went.
He ran like a little bitch. Huxley's a big boy.
Well, I got a question for you guys. So we endured all this stuff. I wonder if it's safe enough to talk about. How'd they do? How'd the government do with all their protections and projections and predictions and their version of science?
Dude, they were 100% on.
That's what I thought too. I felt like
Nailed it.
I basically learned about science they taught us about science.
Yeah.
It was great.
It's the science, Zach. It's
the science. I learned about the science. It was awesome.
Real talk from where, if I'm keeping score, the governments of the world, not just ours or Canada's, but the governments of the world made this exponentially worse than it would have been if they hadn't been involved in orchestrating our response to it.
There's a big...
We were like trying to out-mandate each other.
It was. The States and the U.S. too. It was like, oh, we can be worse. We can be bigger cunts. Yeah. We're going to make it so you can't go to the beach. Oh, yeah.
We care more than you. We're going to restrict you more.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of blood on the hands of government officials of people that wouldn't have died if it wasn't for the way that they responded to this shit, So it's like, I mean, the people that died from getting COVID I'm not ever going to discount that. I mean, that's tragic,
for sure.
And I'm not saying that COVID didn't kill people, because it certainly did.
Absolutely.
But I am also saying that in addition to that, there are a lot of people that died because of
our reaction
to it,
mm-hmm.
or our officials, our people who are in positions of power in our countries,
trying to convince us they can shut the economy off like a switch, and then and now we're in the situation that we're in, largely not just because of it, but largely because they turned off the supply chain. And they pumped a bunch of money into the whole world pumped a bunch of money into it. So, well,
and then they just use other shit like a smokescreen, like we've talked about before, where it's like, oh, no. The economy's not messed up because of that. It's messed up because of the war in Ukraine.
Right.
It's like, is it though?
No. It's the corporate profits. Really? Is that why?
I mean, the war in Ukraine is a factor, I suppose, but that's not the root cause.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see it how that, I can't really make that leap. That takes some serious mental gymnastics,
Well, like Will said, most people don't understand economics. It's actually quite, it takes some time to figure out.
It's horrifying.
And it's counterintuitive sometimes too. Mm-hmm. Supply and demand is, it's not we didn't make it up. We discovered it, but we try and fight it constantly. I don't know. I looked into some data that shows that almost everything that they predicted, CDC too, a lot of these studies they put out were wrong. A lot of their data was just awful. And it's hard to know who to trust now. That's the other thing, because I don't want to be a wackadoodle in my life.
A lot of the studies that the CDC does are in-house, So it's like they're paying their own employees to do their own studies, and it's like...
That's the thing. When it comes to science, like the scientific method is the greatest way for humans to understand the world, but there is a difference between sciences. There's hard sciences and there's soft sciences, and there's a difference between government science, corporate science, and then people that just do science. You know what I mean? Everybody's going to have to be funded some way, and there's always an agenda in there, but there is some freedom to do science for science sake and non-political things. But corporate science and government science always come with a little kitty butthole asterisk next to it, because it's like, well, what's the agenda here?
Yeah, what was your intent?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to, you name a thing that's politicized, it's like, well, no, okay, fuck. These are just people that are doing the science. They are susceptible to not just money. It could be money, but it could also be peer pressure, and
not to mention science is wrong all the fucking time. Like, science is in the business of proving itself wrong.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Like that's a part and parcel with the scientific method.
Isn't it pretty much as soon as they figure something out, they try to prove it wrong?
Yeah.
That's the whole idea.
We stand on the shoulders of giants,
and not only once. They try to prove it wrong in a variety of scenarios, because it might be right in some scenarios and wrong in others.
They didn't do that this time around, did they?
Not a whole lot of it. From where I'm standing.
Yeah. They redefined some things. It's like
swing and a miss on a knuckleball. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
But it was weird to see how we tribaled up. Like that was the most disappointing thing, to see how people were ready to just eat each other.
I was really tenaciously trying to not be in anybody's camp.
I know.
But you know what? It hasn't gotten better since then. I don't think so. Not the topics are different, but
that's
it's still the same
right.
fucking tribes. And it's going to be something else next week, and the week after that it'll be something else. And it's just going to continue.
Yeah. I guess
that's what we are now.
I mean, maybe it's more fair to say that it just really put the full extent of the polarization on display better than anything else has so far. Like more on the nose, you know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, we threw a bucket of paint on the anthill and now we saw every fucking ant.
Yeah,
I do want to say this though. Back in, was it 2004 when that Super Size Me came out?
Yeah.
Even in that, I don't remember because I fell asleep watching it. I watched it the other day.
He was drinking the whole time doing that, by the way.
That's okay. I just wanted to watch it because I'd never watched it. Started watching it, and I don't remember.
That was my life for like 5 years.
I don't remember what the topic was, but even it was 2004. Everybody that I ran into was talking about some end of the world fucking thing in 2004. I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
But it wasn't Y2K. They missed that one.
Right. Yeah.
It's a little early for the Mayan calendar,
Y2K,
though.
So swing and a miss on that. So
Mayan calendar 2012.
What's the next thing? So they just kept. There's always something going on in society that the sky is falling all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Now it's just more and more of the sky is falling.
The end of the world, dude.
Different chunks of the sky are coming down at the same time now.
People are in love with the end of the world. There's some integral piece of humanity that wants to see the whole thing burn.
I think so too.
You can be the biggest saint, but there's some deep part of you that still would be like, fuck yeah, if everything just went up in smoke, you know.
If as long as you didn't, and some of the people you like didn't.
If you guys are not playing Watch It Burn while that actually happens, I'm going to be highly disappointed.
So you're saying it's going to be within our lifetime?
You know, when we did get to play Watch It Burn, that's one of our songs for people listening. When the sky was on fire,
with an excessive amount of fireworks. Like it was pretty cool. Picture your crazy neighbors in your neighborhood that spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on fireworks just so they can have out-war the guy in the other neighborhood, you know, across the cul-de-sac. And multiply it by about 10.
Yeah, exactly. This is a professional blow up the yard.
We hired this fucking company, and we were like, I expected a good show, but I didn't expect that fire. It was like
they were like a legit.
There was more fire than sky. Dude.
It was awesome.
Was wild,
and it was in the middle of a neighborhood that doesn't like that kind of shit, which made it really fun too.
It was like a recently gentrified neighborhood,
super bougie,
a bunch of posh people that paid way too much to live in what used to be a crack hood.
Exactly.
And they're like, "What the fuck?"
That is. I have 5 ordinances that are going off in my head. None of those work. Well, fuck. All right. So now let's move along to some advice that we give ourselves. And this week is about boundaries and finding your boundaries. But I think, is this you, Jeff, with the boundaries? Let's see. Yeah. It says, here, I'll start it because we've talked about this before. It's like when you get into a relationship, probably one of the best things you can do is discuss, if you can even think of them, is discuss your boundaries, right? Try and figure them out. Because it feels good when you find that it's okay that your boundaries have been put out into the world and that somebody's seen them and that they accept them, right?
Right.
Okay. I don't know if that's where you're going or not.
I feel like it's hard. It'd be hard to sit down. I mean, other than, the
safe
obvious
words.
ones.
Safe word is a good boundary.
Don't brush your teeth with my toothbrush.
But that's a boundary that you may not know.
Even though we're allowed to make out and that makes no sense.
Right. Don't use it for...
Don't, because I don't like it.
I think in
personal
general,
space. Personal space.
I think in general, a lot of times in people in the world where they want to be a nice person, they don't have any boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Agreeable people don't generally.
Yeah, and they're
not good at showing them. Yeah.
Let people walk on them, and
we all have that in us.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, all of us do for sure. I mean, I pretty much made a career out of it in reality. I mean, Mr. Helpy Helperton, if I could help you, that meant that you probably that you needed me and I had value. That's how I gave myself value. But in doing so, I sacrificed my own boundaries. And I guess it's really just recognize what your boundaries are and don't be afraid to display them. Because if you don't, you're only cheating yourself, and the people around you, they won't know.
What makes us afraid to not want to share our boundaries?
I think it's loss of value if somebody doesn't. If I set a boundary and somebody that I care about, they feel some sort of violation from that, or they're slighted from that, then they're not going to care about me as much, and I'll lose them in my life if I don't allow this behavior from them, and they need me, and if they need me, then they love me. Weird shit, right?
Right. Well, so telling people your boundaries kind of sometimes helps you figure out the people in your life that you can be comfortable with.
What's really cool about recognizing what your boundaries are and being able to express them, you can get people out of your life that you don't want in there really goddamn easy. It's perfect.
For sure.
Yeah, works out nice.
You can also just express some political things and.
Oh yeah, or you could
they're out.
Just say something totally opposite of what they think and
blocked.
Well, I think it's hard to recognize your own boundaries because you kind of have to run into some shit that makes you feel some kind of way like you would want a boundary in order to know where your boundary should be in the first place. So sometimes it's hard to know, and sometimes it's a matter of like, well, I didn't know this was a boundary, but I think it needs to be a boundary, and so you just bring it up, like it's just like a new thing out of the blue, and that can make people feel like you're capricious, and which is also kind of like look out, and maybe you are too. Like you should probably examine that. Be like, is this just bothering me because I didn't get toast for breakfast this morning and I'm bitter? Like, is this a me problem?
My boundaries are fluid.
It a boundary that I need to have?
Fluid boundary.
But it's okay for your boundary to shift. But I think if you're going to be in a situation where you're having somebody close to you in your life, whatever form that relationship takes, you need to just maintain some level of open discourse about it and have, try to cultivate a mutual understanding that's like, hey, if something bothers me, I'm gonna bring it up and talk about it, and maybe it's something that needs to change, and like that's and if that takes the form of I got to set some boundaries here, or this is a boundary that I've always had, or this is a boundary that I just realized I needed, like it's you owe it to yourself and to the people that are sharing close proximity with you to fucking bring it up.
Big time.
But it's scary too because it's like potential confrontation, because it's just like, hey, I know you're just being you, but I don't like that thing you did. It bothers me, so like that's tough.
Well, and I have an example of that where I thought a boundary that I set just last night potentially could have started an argument. And the story is about 2 weeks ago, this homeless guy showed up at my front door. My girlfriend was over at the time. She came down, asked me if I had a tent, and then she explained kind of what was going on. I'm like, no, I've got some stuff, some cold gear for this guy.
She wanted to give the homeless person at your door a tent.
Yeah, he was asking for a tent.
Nice
Don't do that, then they'll never leave.
Set up a tent.
Well, he didn't ask for a band.
You're gonna have
for a tent
neighbors
and a spot.
The intent in the tent was for him to go somewhere else. Anyway, I gave him some warm weather gear. Sent him on his way. He left. Well, then yesterday afternoon, he shows up and he's got a friend like 2 weeks later, and he starts asking for stuff. He was talking to her again out front, and she's being very polite. We don't have anything for you, but it was nice to see you, kind of thing.
Right.
Well, then they showed up.
Nice to see you, neighbor.
Then they showed up at 9:00 last night. We were watching a movie, and I'm like, who the fuck is that? I don't even know anybody out here. Who's at my door? And it's these two guys. And I open the door, and she's in the back. It's like, oh, hi, guys. How are you? And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing at my house at 9:00? Like, okay, the intent of me helping you was for you to get your shit together and go away, not continue to come back. You've got to go. Like, please don't come back. Like, you're nice guys. Get the fuck out of here. But in the meantime, she's still trying to be nice. And like, oh, shit. And then I realized, she just got to see one of my boundaries.
You're a fucking asshole.
And I was being a dick while she's being nice. And there was this moment, I'm like, oh, fuck.
My
I showed
girlfriend's gonna
stuff.
not like
That's not
me
going to be
anymore.
good.
Right.
And she's like, no. She's like, I'm like, was that cool? Like, you're being nice. And she's like, no, you're totally right. She's like, I don't know how to tell people to leave like that.
Right.
That's something that I have to work on. She's like,
Yeah.
no,
Well-
you're totally right.
Well,
It was wrong.
give people that can't do that, give them a secret. What's the secret to being able to do that? How do you get that confidence?
Understand
or
that you might have
assertiveness?
conflict, and it's okay to have conflict. Just because you say something and it creates conflict, it doesn't mean that you're wrong. Recognize if you are. But if you're standing up for something, for your principle, you can't be wrong.
Well, and recognize too that conflict inherently makes most people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The people that you're creating conflict with, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to like it either, and they're going to want it to stop. You know, so like,
I
could it escalate? Yes.
I do understand.
But will it 9 times out of 10? No, not unless you're way over the top.
Right.
I do understand that. I mean, conflict was my job, right? I mean, most of the time I was going to somebody's conflict. It wasn't always with me, but I was there to resolve conflict or be in conflict.
Yeah, and you immediately were the
I
focus
still
of the
don't like it
conflict.
in my personal life, but if I have to be in it, it's a lot easier. And I, I also can control myself better than most people in conflict too, and have a conversation, not scream and yell. So
Well, you've also been in a lot of fights, so you know what it's like to be in a fight, and you know what you're capable of. Most people don't know.
that's
what
true.
they're
Yeah, most
capable of.
people have a plan until they get punched in the mouth. I
Exactly.
believe it was Mike Tyson that said that.
Till you get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
So good.
I love Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson is so fucking cool.
I think he is.
He's super fucking
He's
cool.
he's on my list of highest, like, a guy with a good sense of humor about himself too. Like,
I would love to.
check out his cartoon.
I would love to hang out with Mike Tyson for like an evening.
I know, right?
So great.
That would be fun. It's just kind of living
He's
on the
that
edge.
list of mine.
I watch him on podcasts, and you can see people are just a little bit like uncomfortable because it's like this guy could tear us apart. And he doesn't, and he kind of wants to.
Just don't make him mad. Oh yeah, he knows
He's
his
awesome,
demons
though.
well. He
I
sits
kind of
with
feel
them.
that way
yeah.
about Jeff. I
He's
still
got
hang out
some
with him.
Fair enough. He feels like he has some sage wisdom too lately. Like he just kind of comes out with some Confucianisms and
Look at all the
whatnot.
lessons that guy's got to learn in
he's,
life.
he's been
True.
through some serious shit, man. I hope he gained some wisdom along the way.
I feel like if you tattoo your face like that, no, sorry, you learn a lot of things about a lot of things.
Guess I'll cancel my appointment for tomorrow.
Unless if you want to learn those things, you can learn
mind.
those things.
Just get a good one. Maybe not a tribal tattoo on the face. That's,
Yeah,
you're
it
right.
really shows it. The tribal tattoo shows his age for sure.
Yeah. It's like the '90s ruled, huh,
I think
bro?
I was already making fun of your arm
Yeah.
a couple episodes ago. But you know what? Look,
I was a teenager.
Look, you can't even see because look, I've got this one little tribal band
You
on
sure
his
do.
arm, but it's so secretly in there now.
What a loser.
I know.
Nerd.
And what's funny about that tattoo is this guy. I arrested the
This
guy
is
like
not
4 or
barbed wire.
5 times. What's that?
At least it's not barbed wire. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not barbed
I
wire.
almost
It's
got
the male version of
that would be
was-
super gay.
I thought that you're supposed to be like a
nice.
Frankenstein. I thought that's what that is.
Yeah, it's not barbed wire, but for all of
Stitches?
you who
Is it
don't
stitches?
have, for all of you that I didn't just lose by using the G word derogatorily, sorry, my bad.
Yeah,
I
right.
grew up that way. But for all of you who can't see, I have tattoos on my wrist that everybody always thinks is barbed wire, and it's not. But I get why they think that because they're not finished and it looks like barbed wire.
They look cool though. It looks like your arm. You can take your hands off.
this guy that gave me the tattoo. He was a great guy, but he used to get some warrants because he had a little bit of a drinking driving problem. So
He got drunk and then tattooed you. No.
no, but no, but I arrested him on a warrant. So I just knocked on his door. Hey, how you doing? Hey, dude, you got to go to jail. He's like, fuck, do I? I'm like, well, you want me to take you, or do you want someone to chase you? He's like, no, I'll go with you.
Nice.
So I set up my appointment. He's like, I'll bond out. He's like, when are you off? I'm like, I'm off at 2 a.m. He's like, oh, well, just come to my house when you're off work. I'll give you a tattoo. So
Nice.
that's how I got that tattoo.
Interesting.
And now it's
connection.
covered.
Fuck yeah.
Outstanding.
But it's not super
but it still
covered.
has a good story.
Yeah, but we were friends. I just arrested my friend. When
I'm totally
tribal
for shitty tattoos as long as they have a good story.
Fair enough.
Like that's the whole point of having a tattoo, isn't it? Just to have a story that goes with it.
Like that guy with the cat's asshole where his belly button is. I feel like that's a good story.
That's a good story.
That's a
great.
good. It has to be a good story, right? Like, why did you do that?
I can only assume he likes to dig in his belly button.
And watch himself in the mirror and jerk off. Oh. Wow.
And there was one day he was picking lint, and he's like, "Oh, like a cat butthole."
2.7, baby.
Get that tattoo.
2.7.
2.7. Raw dogging that belly button
You know he's
butthole.
tipping that up
Better-
and filling that cup.
Better his own belly button than his poor cat.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
That's a good point. Well, we got one last thing. Actually, we should say one more thing. Fuck Trudeau, since you came all this
Fuck
way to say
Trudeau.
that.
Fuck Trudeau.
Fuck Trudeau.
Fuck the government in general. Even the people that are trying real hard. Even fuck you guys as well. But the last thing that we have, Shaiden, is on you. It's things that we learned about hexagons. And this should be very short. So this is the end of the show.
It is short,
But we learned
I'll keep
something.
I'll keep it brief, but I learned interesting thing about hexagons, and there's some contention because it's like hexagons versus triangles, right? As far as which one is the
Gang war.
best load-bearing shape.
Sharks, not jets.
Exactly.
Okay.
A lot of people say hexagon. Some people say triangle because it has less points of intersection.
Okay.
But the point is, hexagon as a shape is not only super strong, like architecturally speaking, you can actually make some of the strongest woven material out of layered hexagons because of the way that they distribute the load
Okay.
against one another. But the more interesting thing about hexagons is it's the most naturally occurring shape in the world. Like it occurs in nature just on its own. If you have bubbles on the surface of water, they naturally try to form hexagons. If you have, beehives, the bees, I learned this maybe would have been a more interesting thing, but it ties into the hexagons. Bees actually build their honeycombs initially in circles, but it's the weight distribution of all of them together that turns them into hexagons.
Really?
Yeah.
Nature's tight. Math and all the fucking time.
If you have like basalt columns that you see, always hexagons. It's
And
like
it naturally does
because it's pressure of volcanic material being pressed together by plates, and that's the best load bearing shape. Allegedly, it's the best displacement by surface area.
You sure this isn't a shovel dick theory?
It's I vetted it for about 15 minutes, so I'm quite certain.
Let's make that a saying. That sounds pretty shovel dick to me.
Yeah, that's kind of
Is that shovel cock? That sounds shovel cock.
Shovel cock.
I don't know.
But anyway, I thought that was interesting. I love shit like that, like naturally occurring things, like the note, the tone, the pitch. C. The note C is the most naturally occurring note in the world too. Like when your ears ring, it's C.
Really? And Jerry's just poor Jerry.
Yeah.
Our violin player.
He's
has
like,
perfect
my
pitch.
ears ring in C, but it's sharp by 0.0.
Exactly. 1 cent up. Fucking help me. All right. Well, that's this week's show. And this has been a lot of fun. And thank you, Will, from coming all the way from Canada.
All the way down.
Thanks for having me.
You didn't bring any Timbits?
No Timbits.
There was no
ketchup
syrup?
chips. No syrup. No, that's mine. Poutine's mine too. Too bad.
Yeah. We would have liked next time. Please bring ketchup chips.
Now that I know.
Okay, thank you.
You know
You'll
what
get
else
ketchup.
is yours? Trudeau.
You can,
Fuck Trudeau.
Yeah, don't bring him. You can leave him up there. That's fine.
Trade you for Biden.
No, it's not even a good trade.
You can have them all. We'll just send all the politicians to Canada and see what happens.
Dude.
You guys will have a good time.
Canada can become Australia, but for politicians instead of criminals.
Fuck yes. Yes. But then
Take it out first.
give them all the guns.
you're already here, dude.
Come
You're
on
good.
out. Come on out. You can pick one province to fucking
Saskatchewan.
keep. Okay.
Oh, no, that's the one to like doom.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
You
to
get to keep
keep?
one. BC. Got to be
Oh,
BC.
it's gonna be BC.
Yeah, of course.
So beautiful.
Of course, BC.
It's got the two
Because
best.
I mean, at the
BC.
same time, if we want our maple syrup, it's Quebec.
True.
And poutine.
Ooh, we know how to make poutine.
Yeah, we've learned
now.
enough.
We know enough. Yeah. Your secrets
got
are
the
ours,
trade
Quebec. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening to Just a Ride podcast number 15 on the SKATCAST Network. You can write to us at justarridepod@gmail.com.
It's just a ride pod.
That's right. Or at skatcast.com, info@skatcast if you'd like to do it that way as well. Also, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/skatcast. Soon to be one for us, but now you can just give me the money instead.
Yeah, you can come to
Give me
my
the money.
house, but bring gin if you do.
Yep,
all.
you can
And
come
I'm
to the
not
house.
telling you where I live, so you have to.
They'll find out.
Good luck.
Challenge accepted.
Not that hard.
Skatcast.com for merch and all that shit. And yeah, we'll talk at you in the future.
It'll seem like the present.
Bye.
See ya.
Later.
Hey.
It's just a ride. Whoa, oh, it's just a ride.
Bing
Bong.
That's Canadian farts.
Ooh, that one had maple syrup in it.